Clue is a competitive enablement platform that collects and delivers intelligence across every department of every business. Clue organizes intel into cards, delivering competitive insights across the tools and devices your teams already use. Enablement teams also get superpowers, allowing them to collect intel from millions of sources outside your organization, as well as internal sources like Salesforce, Slack, and company emails. Clue allows them to go deeper and cover more competitors without any extra hires or late nights for the team. Collect, curate, compete. Clue. Competitive enablement for the modern enterprise.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Product Marketing Festival. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the sessions that we have lined up for you today. With expert presentations, specialist talks, and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, suffice to say, you're in for a treat. Just before we jump in, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's played a part in making this event possible. Our sponsors, partners, speakers, presenters, and of course you, the product marketing community. You can engage with all our speakers and their sessions today by posting your questions in the comments section of the broadcast, or you can reach out to them in our Slack community. Remember, you can catch up with all this week's content on demand, plus a whole host of other amazing benefits by becoming a PMA member. And whilst you're at it, why not check out Product Marketing Core, our industry-renowned certification. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next session.
Thank you for joining today. I'm thrilled to be with you at the Product Marketing Festival and excited to talk to you about my experience as a product marketer over the years and why I believe it is well past time for us to take our seat at the strategy table as product marketers. I'm Lori Stout. I've been a marketer for a little over 15 years now. I've got my start in customer marketing. I've worked in content marketing, solutions marketing, and spent the bulk of my career as a product marketer. And one thing that some of you might be able to relate to is that over the course of my career, as I've moved from organization to organization, that role as product marketer has looked a little bit different, whether it's where product marketing sits in the organization, the goals and objectives that are set for product marketing. Every business has a little bit of a different spin on how they look at product marketing. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit today as we go through this presentation and just frame how we can use our experience as subject matter experts to really position ourselves as strategists in the company. I'm currently the Senior Director of Product Marketing at a company called Punchh. If you're not familiar with us, we're about 11 years old. We're based in Silicon Valley, and we are the leader in customer loyalty offers and engagement. So if you have a favorite restaurant brand and you have their loyalty app on your phone and you collect rewards and engage with the brand in that way, odds are good that we had something to do with building that loyalty program. So it's a great space to be in. We're really seated firmly in the customer experience space, which I really enjoy. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about in this session, I found the statistic from the Product Marketing Alliance 55 Product Marketing Stats for 2020. And it's kind of a shocking statistic when you see it in print, but it's also one that really held true for me, is that just 5% of product marketers say that the other teams and stakeholders really understand what they do and what their role is inside the organization. So of course, that means 95% of us don't feel like the organization and our colleagues really understand what we do and the value that we bring to the business. And the weird contradiction to this is that we collaborate with more cross-functional teams than probably any other department in the company. We are kind of the eyes and ears for everything that's happening in the business and bringing that all back together to that innovation strategy. So, my friends, it is time for us as product marketers to make that shift from simply saying yes to asking why when it comes to innovation and strategy. Instead of being handed this fully baked roadmap and being told to go execute, we really need to assert ourselves and become more involved earlier in the process, that so that we are there with market research and competitive research in hand before the roadmap is even a twinkle in your engineering team's eye. And here is why. So there are a lot of different reasons why, but here are three that I'd like to talk to you about today. First of all, again, I think that we have a unique 360-degree view of the organization that nobody else has. And then secondly, we help bridge that gap between innovation and what we think we need to build, between what we actually need to build and what the market will support and will respond to. And then last but not least, and this one has been hotly contested through the years, marketing has traditionally been lumped into that cost center bucket, but we have the tools and technologies and metrics now to really prove ourselves as a growth center instead of a cost center. So jumping right into that idea of our unique view of the organization, if you think about it and you've ever led a go-to-market, we really lay that foundation that helps each step in that go-to-market process work. And then along the way, we're bringing the teams together and we're helping to cross the T's and dot the I's, and we're acting as that mortar that holds the whole process together from start to finish. If you're lucky enough to have a project management team in your organization, then you probably have a partner in crime with this, but you also understand that you are ultimately responsible for that successful launch. And I thought this was interesting when thinking about this 360-degree view. So the Product Marketing Alliance interviewed 50 of the top product marketing influencers. And one of the questions they asked was, what is the role and value of product marketing in your organization? And of course, they got a lot of different responses from these influencers. But there were some similarities that really held true across the board. And this really just helps reinforce that idea that we are sort of this glue that's holding this go-to-market together. So not only do we help execute these projects and get these features to market, we make sure that it happens on time so that the company can start recognizing that revenue earlier. We differentiate our product messaging and we find new ways, even if it's a product or a feature we may not necessarily be so excited about, it may not feel so innovative, there are still ways that we as product marketers find to tell a compelling story about what we're launching and get the market to pay attention. We are the thought leaders in the organization. We're the ones that people go to for the messaging. How do I position this? How do I talk about this to my customers and prospects? And then we should really be leading the charge with the analyst community and with influencers to help them understand the role of our organization in the market and how we're innovating. And then when it comes to pricing and packaging, nobody thinks of that as like a very exciting piece of go-to-market, but it does help set the stage for the distinct value of what we're offering, and it positions it to customers and prospects appropriately. So we really act as the voice of the market, what the market wants and needs. We're acting as the voice of sales, so taking that feedback for why we're winning or losing deals and how we need to apply that to our roadmap. And our customers who take the time to give us our feedback, and we need to make sure that feedback isn't slipping into a black hole somewhere and not getting used to inform our strategy. We really, in the end, make that connection between the product team and the market and make sure that what we're innovating on is the right thing. And this is just something I wanted to point out that, although we are collaborating with all of these different teams, that's a skill that I think is undervalued in a lot of organizations, but it's one that's necessary. And if it wasn't there, everyone would notice right away that this mortar wasn't in place that's kind of keeping these processes connected. So be proud of that skill. I mean, even when we don't necessarily feel like bringing all of these teams together and being the ones who have visibility to all of it, it plays such a critical role in your organization. And it's just at the heart of the strategy that your teams are pulling off. So here are a few just pragmatic tips for how you can claim your seat at the strategy table and use that 360-degree view to your advantage. First of all, if you don't already, get to know an executive who understands product marketing and who really believes in what you're doing as a product marketer. Take them your process ideas, take them your proof points for what's worked well in the past, and get their buy in and let them be your champion when you're trying to put these new processes in place and you're trying to get visibility into the strategy earlier. Uncover pain points across teams. So before you come with your process in hand and you start to make sweeping changes, ask the teams, what's going well, what's not going well, how can we make these launches better, and take the time to ask them the questions that may have difficult answers, so that you know what really needs to be improved on. And you'll be amazed at how these cross-functional teams start to view you as an ally and an asset instead of just somebody who wants to get in the way with yet another process. And then after you make these connections with the different teams, make sure that you do it regularly. I know that we're all so tired of meeting after meeting after meeting, but these 20 or 30-minute check-ins that you have with these teams, you would be amazed at what gets uncovered in some of those cross-functional meetings. So take the time to preserve those connections across the organization. It's well worth it. Secondly, educate everyone. Own your position as the go-to-market expert. If you've led go-to-markets in the past that have worked well, bring those proof points and say, look, this isn't a process just for process sake. This will really help us accomplish our goals as an organization. It's worked in the past, it will work again. But at the same time, don't over-engineer it. Try to keep it simple, make it easy for everybody to follow along in the process and to do their part and to clearly understand what the expectations are for them. And then, of course, I know this is not news to any of you. As product marketers, we have to beat the drum over and over again on what the message is, what the go-to-market plan looks like, why we're doing it this way now instead of just the way it's always been done in the past. And don't be afraid to repeat yourself and reinforce the value of what you're doing as a strategist. And then last but not least, celebrate what went well with each launch that you do. Keep track of those wins, whether they're tangible wins like product usage or new sales that is attached to the product or feature, or it's just wins of, hey, we launched this product on time and under budget. Make sure that you're tracking that and you're taking time to celebrate it and take those proof points back to your executive champion and the executive team. And then track areas where you can do a little bit better the next time. It's a process, right? You don't ever do the same go to market twice. And there's always something that we can learn that will improve the next one. And then don't launch and leave. So we've all had those difficult go to markets where, we're just wanting to hit and go and then be done. But go back and take the time to explore, how that product is performing in the market, how you can add new features that will bring value in the future. And it's just a continuous cycle. So we never really set it and forget it with our go-to-market launches, even the difficult ones. There's always something new and something different that you can do to nurture that product in the market. Secondly, product marketing bridges the gap between innovation and reality. And this is by no means meant to be a slight on our product and engineering friends. I've worked with some brilliant engineers and product managers in my career, and I could not code my way out of a paper bag. So I have absolutely nothing but respect for them and the way that they approach innovation. But I've worked at a few companies that were product first, and the problem with that is that there is an assumption that you just need to build this cool technology and that's enough. And if you're not familiar with this picture, it's from the movie Field of Dreams. It came out when I was a kid. It was a really good movie, kind of weird, but a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But the whole theme of that movie was this line, if you build it, they will come. And the problem with some of these product first companies is that they're finding that they build it and nobody comes. And that is because you still have to take it to market, even if you build it. And that's where we come in, from ideation before that roadmap is even born, all the way past when that product goes to market. And we're kind of, in partnership with the product teams and helping them stay on track with what the market needs and wants. So, from the very beginning, that looks like customer feedback, competitive research. We're analyzing, is this the right time to take this feature to market? Will the market support it? We're talking to analysts about, the conversations they're having with their prospects, and we're asking them, is this the right time and the right approach to build this? Is there anything else we should be focusing on instead? We're talking to our partners to hear what their customers are saying to them. And then as we start to build out that roadmap, this sounds very simplistic, but even something as simple as what we call a product really sets the tone for how the market responds to it. We're looking at, how will this impact our revenue? I mean, that's a number that everyone from your C-suite on down is going to be really interested in. And it's one of those great metrics that you can tie back to the value of product marketing. We're pricing it competitively in the market. And then this is one that some companies overlook, is just how we package our products and features. So the goal there is to package these new technologies or these new products or features in a way that drives the most value for your customers, so they're not subscribing to a package of stuff that they're not actually going to use, but it also drives the most value back to your business. So in combination with that pricing exercise, definitely take a look at how you're packaging all of these things as well. When it's time to promote and launch, you are the gatekeeper of the messaging. The messaging that you create for this new product or feature sets the tone for everything. It's the baseline for your go-to-market plan. It keeps everything in scope. It helps your sales team understand how to have these conversations when they start to sell it. It helps your support teams know, what the intended value is, and to make sure that your customers are getting that value. So make sure that you really own the messaging and that go-to-market plan from start to finish. Talk to your pilot customers if you offer pilots. Ask them how things are going. If you uncover some red flags, don't be afraid to blow the whistle and say, hey, we've got to shift this go-to-market date a little bit until we iron this out. Might be some short-term pain, but the benefits of a successful GA launch will far outweigh that pain in the end. This is where you create that great content and collateral that your demand generation team can use to help build new pipeline. This is when you enable your internal teams. So again, everybody's using that baseline messaging to sing from the same sheet of music about the value of this product and feature. And then this is when you start to promote it to the analyst community, to the media, and really position yourselves as thought leaders and innovators in the market. And then last but not least, again, we don't launch and leave. So getting that customer feedback early on as customers start to adopt is really critical. The same with your support teams. And again, I think sometimes we're afraid to talk to support because sometimes they hear the worst of the worst, but that's really what we need to hear so that we can help our product teams focus on the right bug fixes and the right features to add on to these new technologies so that they're really serving our customers well. And then as you start to uncover happy customers, those proof points and case studies are gold when you start to build out your content and your collateral library, whether it's customer quotes or customer testimonials. Everybody loves to hear from a customer about why a product or feature is valuable. And then don't be afraid to tweak your messaging over time. Go-to-market is never really set it and forget it. We have an opportunity to improve and to kind of change the way that we look at products over time. And again, make sure that you're leveraging the analyst community and you are getting the right information in the hands of the press, and you're packaging it all in a way that positions your organization as a thought leader. So a few tips for how to do this in your organization. So if you don't have a customer advisory board or user group, it's okay. You can still leverage some of your most vocal customers. You know who those people are. And if you don't, your customer support teams will. Also get to know your UI and UX team and ask them how people are responding to their user testing. See if there's any feedback there that you can take back to your product teams and leverage. Interview your sales and support teams. Again, don't be afraid of the feedback that you get. These are two very vocal teams in the organization, but their insight is invaluable. They have a very bird's eye view of what's going on in the market. And then if you're not already, do some win-loss analysis. If you're uncovering something recurring, a feature that your product is missing, or an opportunity to iterate on something that's going really well, take that feedback to the product team before they start to build out that roadmap. Talk to your analysts, and again, leverage them as experts. They talk to a lot of prospective customers, and they can guide a lot of business to you or away from you. So it definitely benefits you to get their expertise. And then this is one that has really been a gift for me through the course of my career, and I hope that we can do this again soon. But going on site and visiting customers and sitting with your end users and asking them, how is our technology helping you do your job? What could we do differently? What do you like about it? What's not easy to use about it? And getting that firsthand feedback is one of the most valuable things that I've ever spent time on. And then when you're in the launch process, again, make that messaging the foundation for everything else that you do. It helps you really solidify ownership of that go-to-market plan. And then as you're moving through those go-to-market activities, try to set a goal for yourself to be the first to deliver on your marketing deliverables. And I always tell my product teams, when we're in the thick of it with these go-to-markets, I promise you that when we're ready to launch, you will not be waiting on marketing. And knock on wood, that has been the case so far. But as the owner of the go-to-market plan, make sure that you are hitting your own deadlines and delivering when you say you will. Keep talking to those pilot customers and see how things are going with this launch. Make sure that everybody internally is enabled before you decide to go to market and launch. There's nothing that support teams hate more than when something is released out into the wild and they're the last to know about it. So really prioritize that enablement and make sure that all of your teams are comfortable before you launch it. And then this is something that a lot of organizations overlook. So if you're an agile organization, you're releasing features kind of ad hoc, little by little in sprints. I encourage you to take a step back, and whether it's over a quarter or over a season, look at everything you've done and try to map those innovations back to a theme in your organization, whether it's improved analytics, improved customer experience, and treat it like a chapter in the autobiography of your organization. So go ahead and do those agile releases and get those features out to customers, but then take a step back and adopt a seasonal release strategy that will allow you to package those features in a really innovative way that makes it easy for the market to follow your story. And then after the launch, make sure you're collecting customer feedback, collect those early results and identify those happy customers. Continue to refine the message and generate new content as you get those case studies and proof points. And then measure everything as you go. Don't be afraid to put notes and comments directly in your go-to-market tracker so that you can map those successes directly back to your go-to-market plan. Last but not least, product marketing is no longer a cost center, and here's why. So Beth Comstock, who is a former vice chair at GE, said this, and it really rings true. You can't sell anything if you can't tell anything. And a lot of times as product marketers, I think we get written off as just kind of the storytellers and like the soft skills of the organization, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. We are help closing the value loop through the market research that we provide and making sure that this is something that will succeed in the market. We are pricing and packaging in a way that gets attention when we go to market. You really only get one first impression. And if you don't get pricing and packaging right, it is going to limit your growth. We're the owners and the gatekeepers of that messaging and positioning. You can't launch or tell a story without the messaging and positioning. And as you start to deliver that to market, it is one of the earliest predictors of success. And then again, we are the go-to-market owners who help deliver these launches on time so that we can start recognizing revenue earlier. And as we move past the launch, we're continuing to nurture these products in the market to ensure their continued success. A few helpful tips for doing this. Before you launch anything, determine what that measure of success means for you. At the end of this go-to-market, what will success look like for you? And then set those goals for yourself. Also set those revenue impact targets so that you can tell your finance teams, hey, as a result of this on-time go-to-market, here's how we impacted our revenue stream and our pipeline. Again, push back if you see any red flags and you need to delay your go-to-market. Don't be afraid to speak up and say so. And then as you start to execute with your go-to-market plan in hand, stay engaged with the different teams, over communicate on, who's falling a little bit behind, and try to help them meet their deliverables on time. We all know that if one person gets a little off track in a go-to-market, it can really derail the whole thing. So really over communicate and check in with your teams with regularity. Don't forget to preview your release with the analysts and with influencers, whether it's an embargoed press release or you're just checking in with them on an inquiry to say, hey, we're getting ready to release this to market. It's a great way to get them to write about it and to talk about it and to talk to their prospective clients once you do launch it. And then in the measure column, I just added a few of the many, many metrics that as product marketers, we can track directly back to go-to-market and the impact that we have on revenue. So don't be afraid to measure these tangible things. I mean, we don't have to measure in soft skills anymore. We have, the right technologies and tools in place to really directly tie what we do as those cross collaborators across the organization back to how our company is performing. So I just wanted to leave you with this thought. The best thing that you can do to get that seat at the table is to just own it and believe that you deserve it. And if there's one thing that we've all learned, it's that, the best way to exact change is to look at things a little bit differently and to not be afraid to break out of the familiarity of that's the way we've always done it. So I would just encourage each of you to take a step back in your organization and look at some of these tips and tools that you can implement with your cross-functional teams and really step up to the plate as the strategist that you are. With that, I'd like to thank you so much again for joining me today. Here are a few ways to contact me if you would like to get in touch and discuss anything that we talked about today, or just reach out and say hi. I would love to hear from you. And I thank you so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of Product Marketing Festival.
Being an amazing product marketing leader doesn't happen by chance. It happens by habit. Product marketing certified leadership has been built on the back of decades worth of experience from some of the world's best known brands, with one goal in mind: helping you be the best leader you can be. Crammed with real life case studies, over 12 hours worth of content, templates, exams, and more, this course is everything you need to lead with authority, confidence, influence, and innovation. Every piece of material within the 7 modules and 29 chapters has been vetted, tested, and approved by senior level product marketers from companies like Amazon, Uber, and HubSpot, serving up game-changing insights throughout. By the time you've wrapped up the final module, you'll be able to define what it takes to be a great product marketing leader, build and scale your team, understand how to successfully manage your existing team, use methods for leveraging data, know how to become the voice of the customer, understand how teams work cross-functionally, and improve your strategic thinking. The beauty of the course is you'll have the freedom to work your way through the modules at a pace to suit you. It's 100% self-paced. You'll even get lifetime access to the curriculum, paving the way for refresher sessions forevermore. Visit productmarketingalliance.com to get leadership certified and spearhead your journey to the top.
Hello, wherever you're joining us from today, I want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Product Marketing Festival. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you aren't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, mentors, and our entire library of on-demand event content. Make sure you have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice directly from our expert speakers. Or continue the conversation with your fellow product marketers in the PMA Slack community. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Hi, and welcome to Maximizing Revenue Through Digital Commerce Insights. My name is Dave Copeland. I'm a Senior Product Manager here at InRiver. There's no doubt that the way people are shopping has changed. It's a digital age that we are in that was accelerated even more by the pandemic. I know from my own shopping behavior, I'm shopping online more than I ever have, and as evidenced by the stack of packages out on my front steps. But the important thing, especially for product marketers, when you think about your product lifecycle, is that there's an opportunity to leverage insights to win and take advantage of what's going on. So let's first come to grips with today's digital first reality, as I mentioned, is that for high engagement purchases, and empowered customers are self-directing their own buying experiences. And it's no matter where they enter. And these self-directed buying experiences start with the products these days. It's not even with the brand. In fact, 78 of product searches do not even include a brand name online, which is staggering and very different than the way people used to shop in the store. In fact, product information arguably has become the digital front door of your company. And it doesn't really matter where they enter, whether it's through your website, they hit your content through social or search or on a marketplace, or via an app or a distributor or in the channel. It's important to really look after your digital shelf and your content, which we'll dive into here. Really what we're talking about is how to compete and really start answering a new set of questions. Questions you probably never had to answer before, but you now need to consider, like what product content moves the needle in a buying decision? How can I ensure the right product information is available where customers are buying? And how can I adapt to changing buyer preferences before my competitor does? If you can work with speed and agility on the digital shelf, you really have a chance to win. And how can we quickly iterate changes and get them out to all of the engagement points, right? All the different places that you're selling needs to get your great product content. So you need to factor that into your processes. The reality also is that this is difficult. This is a really hard problem. There's many reasons for it being hard. A lot of the technologies and processes that are used today aren't geared around this concept. A lot of the processes and technologies are static and that limit how you present your story. A lot of the brands that I talk to, and I've been talking to brands for years, they're flying blind. They actually have no insight into what changes could be made to their product content, what content is even invisible from the digital shelf. They're literally flying blind and trying to make best decisions without data, which is a scary proposition. And everything is so slow. Traditional methods of managing product information is extremely slow, and you can't afford for it to be that way, especially now. And so product content is important, right? And let's just agree to that for sake of the presentation. But if it is important, why is it difficult? What could go wrong with the content? Well, there's a lot that could go wrong with the content, right? Key product content goes missing online, right? Here's just a small screenshot that shows a particular product where the image of the product is not even there. Never mind this one, the Philips kind of flat television here, not even visible on the page. This one may be worse, as it's advertising noise canceling in earphones, but certainly not showing that in the listing. Neither is this one, where it's a navigation, but a bib is being shown. And there's times as well where there's a mix-up between the brand and the product info. Yet we see another example of that, where we're seeing Nivea gel as the product, but certainly that's not what we're presented with on the digital shelf from a product listing perspective. And neither is this. It's a big mistake where we've got a conflict between a Philips product and an Oral-B listing. So if it is difficult, it starts to beg the question of, well, what should you pay attention to when you're a product marketer and you're working through the product life cycle? What do you need to have online for content to convert well and to be found in search? Let me share kind of a handful of those things with you. The first thing is have a descriptive title, right? First and foremost, have one that helps the buyer find your product. It often is beneficial to include search terms and keywords. You see that a lot on Amazon. That's beneficial to the shopper as well, helps in search. High quality product images are probably more important than ever. Again, I know this from being a consumer myself online. I just don't want to see the front of the box and the back of the box. I'd like to see the product as a lifestyle shot and have that be high quality as well. I want a clear product description, right? Then the more descriptive, the better. I want to see weights, the colors, the measurements, the materials. If I don't get a sense for the product and how it's described, I'll just move to the next one where I do get a better picture. Rich content is converting well these days. Certain videos, animations, whatever can bring your product to life is going to help. And when we think about testimonials and reviews, this is that salesperson walking the floor of the actual physical store, right? When you're in a physical store, you get approached by someone who can kind of give you some information and anecdotes about a product, or maybe you bump into someone in the store that kind of can share some information. You don't get that when you're online. What you get online are ratings and reviews. So those are important and a must-have when it comes to the digital shelf. And it should have led with this. None of this really matters if the product isn't available, if it's not in stock and a consumer can't buy it. So these are the product content must-haves. And if that's the case, it then begs the question, well, then what does a great product page look like? Where can we go to for inspiration? And I think you kind of go no further than looking at Amazon online. Right, here's one of the Amazon white labeled products. They happen to sell some laundry detergent. We can take away a lot from this listing. They have a nice title, like I described, right? We know how many loads it does. We know the fluid ounces. We know some of the key selling features in the title as well. If we look across the page, we see a nice image carousel as well, right? We see the front, of course, we see the back, but we also see some images that speak to some of its features. Gentle on the skin, it whitens and brightens. Very helpful information for me to be seeing here. If we scroll down the page, we also get into the enhanced or rich content here, where again, we kind of learn about this product and its story, not just the facts and figures, but this product is now starting to tell me a story, and I'm starting to get really interested in it. I'm also seeing a great product description down below. that tells me exactly what I need to know about this product. And it's no surprise that I see very good ratings listed here, and the reviews are quite positive as well. So this is certainly a product that looks great on the digital shelf. And again, kind of look no further than the Amazon's own products to get some inspiration and to see what works. So in general, you should pay attention to, obviously, the search ranking of your products, look after the ratings. Visibility is important. If the product can't be found, it can't be purchased. It needs to be in stock, and you should really look after your product content. The product content is what tells the story. The good news is that all of these can be fixed once they're found. The difficult part is doing that at scale. You can't go onesie, twosie, auditing the digital shelf manually. There's just too many products across too many retailers to pull that off. So how can we maximize revenue in online channels? In short, I think we need to have a plan, have a strategy. And these are some of the steps that I outlined for that. If we can acknowledge the power of the product detail page as a very valuable marketing asset, that's the first step. And after we do that, we should then review the must-haves of product content. We should understand why we lose sales. So a little bit of education, and then we can go off with a plan and audit at scale. We can take the learnings from that audit, we can prioritize them, we can take action, and then we can iterate, right? It's not a linear process. You can't just put product content up online and expect it to convert well. There's too much changing from a market condition perspective. My expectations as consumers are changing, retailers are changing their requirements, and other brands that you may have never heard of are coming into the market and offering great experiences. You have to keep iterating. So you have to go back to step 3, continue to audit your product assortment across all the different engagement points and continue to prioritize and take action. A product that performs great and looks great today will likely not look as great tomorrow. You have to keep iterating. And in order to do that, you need to, in my view, leverage technology. It's too difficult of a proposition to do this work manually. I think you need a technology that has an elastic data model. From a product content perspective, you need to be able to store your complex products. You need technology that can orchestrate and help you kind of navigate your way through making the changes. And you need data-driven guidance. And you need these 3 things on the same platform. You need a platform where you can model and store your products. You need to be guided very quickly through the next best actions via that guidance, and the entire process needs to be orchestrated for you. And that's how you accomplish it at scale. This gives you the limitless possibilities from a modeling perspective. It gives you the digital speed that you need. If you can react quick, that is a competitive advantage in today's market. And in engagement intelligence, it's nothing new. Brands have been doing this, looking at their assortments in the stores for a long, long time. It's the same concept. You need to look at your content on all of the different engagement points that it's being sold. The difference is there's much more of them. It's not just the store. You need to look at your social presence. You need to look at your marketplaces. You need to look at the retailers that you're selling on. All of those different engagement points have engagement, have intelligence that can be shared with you to allow you to react and allow you to win. So the summary here is, my suggestion is that product pages, product content is important. So that should speak very directly to you guys as product marketers. And with that being the case, make sure that you have a clear strategy. Define what's important, audit and iterate, and then leverage technology to achieve that scale. And the end result, if we can do this right, is that you can win. There's a real opportunity out there in the market to win. It's difficult, but with the right technology and the right strategy, there's a real opportunity to win on the digital shelf and drive the revenue that you're looking for. So thank you for your time today. One of the technologies you could certainly take a look at is InRiver. We have a digital first PIM that delivers on those 3 value points that I was mentioning there, looking to drive revenue through product information. It's always available at every customer touch point. So thank you again for your time. Again, Dave Copeland, Senior Product Manager at InRiver.
Welcome back to the Product Marketing Festival. As we prepare to unleash another exciting session, I just want to say a massive thank you to our partners, sponsors, you, and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this event to life. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, mentors, our entire back catalogue of event content, and much, much more. What's more, you can continue the conversation in the PMA's Slack community. If you aren't already a member, then hop on over and join the discussions today. And remember, this is your chance to get involved. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments section for our speakers to answer. It really is that simple. Let's resume the sessions.
Hi, everyone. It's been really fun watching sessions here at Product Marketing Fest. Thanks again, PMA, for doing this. My name is Julien. I run PMM here at Gong. I'm ex-Salesforce, SAP, and Talent. You want to know my fun facts? Well, here you have it, some of them. Let's get that out of the way. Fun fact number 1, I delivered a baby in a car. Fun fact number 2, I am French, but I live in San Francisco, although I'm not sure that's really fun. Fun fact number 3, when I was at Salesforce, I got to work with Lars from Metallica on the Dreamforce Perozo. It was a lot of fun. More on all of that at the end of this presentation. You'll understand why. All right, so I often get the questions, how do you get to the next phase in PMM, right? And today I would like to share what I believe are key milestones to grow as a professional, but also probably as an individual. You can call that a PMM's kind of growth journey, if you will. And at the end of the 7 steps, I will then touch on some core principles and values that I believe are fundamental to be a successful product marketer. And I will share some fun personal anecdotes, more on the fun facts that I just mentioned. So stick around for the next 20 minutes or so. It should be fun. All right, so getting to PMM bliss, or call it the way you want, nirvana or Shabbat or paradise or Sunday, it takes 7 steps. So it's kind of like, you know, in a biblical fashion, in a way. It's like you could say the PMM world can be created in 7 days. So I want to do that in both kind of biblical and Kubrick style way. If you haven't seen the movie The Shining, just get out of here. And if you've seen the movie The Shining, it's the most brilliant kind of chapterization in modern cinema ever. And I kind of like borrowed that, you know, like shocking white font on a black screen kind of chapter format. So let's dive into it. Day one is then God said, let there be light, and there was light. The light of PMM. I think once upon a time, for all of us, there was a product marketer, but almost the product marketer here should be like, stroked through, because few people come from PMM to PMM from a PMM background, right? You can come from sales, from product, from marketing, from strategy, from engineering sometimes. And if that's the case, don't be shy. Use this to your advantage. Like, don't lose sight of where you're coming from, right? And be honest with yourself. Like, of course, you can't know everything if you're a PMM who's still early on in his career. So be honest with yourself, know what you can bring, and know your areas of growth and weaknesses. I'll give you my personal example. I was a data scientist before AI was cool, actually. And I was a pre-sales consultant. So I used to use that to tie strong relationships with AI product teams, and of course with sales. I would jump on sales calls anytime I could, and things like that. And I believe that solution engineering is a really good way to tell stories. And it's a great kind of introduction to PMM. It's just that if you're an AC, you tell one-to-one story to that one prospect and customer you're talking to right now, versus us PMMs telling one-to-many stories. But I had no idea at the time what dimension was about, even what positioning was about, brand, all of that stuff that was completely foreign to me. Tuesday, the second day. In the Bible, it is the creation of the firmament. So I think the firmament here is on your day two, finding your groove. A lot of us come from a messaging and positioning and storytelling kind of background. And there's a reason for that. We are, as human beings, all pretty intuitively telling good stories. So why not do the same at work, right? And so I think it's obvious that a lot of PMMs are good storytellers. But then think about what exactly is your edge. Like, think about where you stand in the market in comparison with other PMMs, maybe on your team, maybe on other teams, maybe in other companies, maybe in the market. What's your differentiation? If it's customer facing, then use that to your advantage. Or if you've done a lot of interactions with customers, then maybe you are a really good demo builder. You love building demo narratives. It's not such a common thing. People build decks and website content sometimes and collaterals, but like building demo can be your edge, right? Or if you're a past user of one of those apps, then maybe you have a better understanding and knowledge of the customer journey. And you can use that to maybe become a little more specialized in adoption programs, for example. Or you are really good with sales. Sales is your BFF, then go for that kind of enablement and GTM, bottom of the funnel focus. That will be your edge. Okay, cool. Day 3 is the day when God created earth, sea, and vegetation. So this is the sea image. I think it's a lot about learning from your mistakes. So at this point, remember day 1 and 2, the creation of the PMM world, you've seen the light, you've found your groove, you've had a few months, maybe a few even years of delivering stuff, delivering programs and assets. It means that you've actually started making mistakes. Good for you. So learn from them. Don't be shy. Love that quote. Mistakes are proof you're trying. Correcting mistakes is proof you're growing. Let it sink for a moment. I'll just give you some of my own personal mistakes, and those are very specific to, I believe, product launches and how PMMs tend to launch products in a not so optimal way, just as examples. And I'm sure a lot of you listening to this would agree and would have experienced some of those, right? So lack of sponsorship or exec buy-in if you're launching products, or not being able to communicate broadly, or have meetings with 1,000 people. When you do stand-ups and weeklies and syncs, you invite everybody, and that means that nothing is happening on those meetings. Just pick the one lead per department or function. Another common mistake would be to over-index on product and not really think about the business pain. In the same realm, we sometimes tend to sell features, not benefits. I know this is very PMM 101, but just examples. Another example, and we've all lived that, we all have PTSD from it, is changing messaging the night prior, the week prior. Don't do that, right? Messaging takes time, so it has to be in messaging freeze as early as possible before go launch date. Another one is have a lot of competing outbound priorities or activities. Maybe your demand gen team didn't talk to you, you didn't talk to them. They're doing a big webinar, you're doing your product launch. Like, whoa, that's crazy. Now you're gonna like split the audience. That's stupid, right? And of course, enablement is always kind of the unsung hero or the forgotten child of product launches, because we believe that it's such an outbound thing. Well, we forget about the inside, the inbound side of the house. So just a few examples here. And now day 4, if I can still count, yes, day 4 is Thursday, where sun, moon, and the stars, according to the Bible, got created. So this is where you've seen the light, you've found your groove, you've started learning from your mistakes, and day 4, you should be starting to flex your PMM muscles in that newly born sun or created sun. Flexing your muscles, that means go broader, right? Like it's cool to stay on 1 or 2 given PMM functions and go deep, but I think when you think about your next gig and the one after and your growth trajectory and journey, think about going broad. And there's multiple ways to do that. So you would have to think about all the functional areas of PMM that you have not explored. And listen, I know it's scary because, the unknown and change is scary. So try to list the things you might have done and the others that you haven't. Enablement, messaging, those are pretty common ones. But what about things like thought leadership and content, or analyst relations, or adoption programs, or inbound PMM, pricing, packaging? There's so many. So find the ones you haven't touched and just go for it. Don't be afraid, learn from others, get some mentors, but experiment and try to go broad. I think another way that I've found really interesting or successful to kind of identify the new things you would like to contribute to or to own would be thinking about the metrics. You can think about the metrics that you haven't touched, right? The KPIs. So I'm hiring a lot lately. I love when I see candidates who have influenced more than just pipe and ACV. Sometimes in PMM, we're a little like pipe, ACV. Of course, there's pipe and ACV, but there's more, and we'll get to talk about those as well. Cool. So now you're all muscular and fit. You've flexed your PMM muscles. You saw the light. You found your groove. You're having fun. Friday. And I'm just doing this weird, like a bird image to capture your attention again. Day 5 in the Bible is birds and sea animals. Now, this is in complete contradiction with any PMM playbook because the image does not support the message, but I did that on purpose to just wake you up a little. Day 5 is about measuring success, communicating success, sharing success, measuring success. If you can't measure, you can't improve it, right? If you can't measure success, there's no success. Again, in my opinion, marketing is too often viewed only as the lead and MQL or SAO machine. But the beauty of the function is that we potentially touch every KPI that really matter to how companies run their businesses, right? And again, just a few examples. The metrics can span across the funnel and even post-sales. So I'm not saying touch them all, but I'm saying think about the one you haven't really contributed to or impacted so far, and try to think about new programs and new ways you could experiment with to kind of change that. So at the top of the funnel, we have all the awareness metrics, and God knows how hard those are sometimes to measure. Then you get into pipe. I'm gonna give you a pipe and funnel lesson here. I really like conversion rates and being specific with win rates, because I think it's the way to get granular to the point where you know what actions to take. Let's be honest, like reporting on metrics is good for ego and for collaboration and for visibility inside the company and maybe even outside. But the point of it is finding actionable insights, you know, and if you can get granular and if you know things like the win rate to your top competitor or to status quo in certain segments or in certain geos by product, that really is where you're going to think about a net new program that you should sponsor or contribute to that would move the needle a little bit. Revenue, multiple ways of measuring a revenue, of course. Can be revenue coming from new product introductions, deal cycles, the actual seat price, the ASP, the ACV and ARR, of course, all of those. And then post-sales, product adoption. Again, 1,000 ways to measure product adoption. The usual monthly active user, weekly, daily. There's also page views, clicks. And if you even go further, renewals, expansions, churn, those are still metrics that PMM has the potential to influence. Cool. Welcome to Saturday. Woohoo, we made it to the weekend. So now it's day 6. Day 6 is where land, animals, and humans were created in the Bible. Again, the Bible this is more like a cultural reference. It's nothing religious per se, of course. So humans, let's talk about humans. Humans are awesome. Why? Because we are humans, so we get to hang out, and also because we create tools. And don't underestimate the power of these tools, of these processes, right? I know people would be like, oh, you know, this is admin work. Like, I don't have to get into this. I want to stay creative. I want to talk to the customer. Yes to all of this, but as well, learning the tools will, 1, make you more productive, free up some time for all of that creativity work. And 2, it will be applicable. It is going to be a knowledge that you will keep with you as you move from one job to another, from one gig to another. I'm not saying you should move over crazily, by the way, but like just thinking big picture and career growth, right? Those tools, you have them, you have the know-how, they'll just follow you. So by tools, I mean things like actual software tools, you know, competitive intelligence tools that PMMs use a lot, Clue, Crayon, and the likes. Revenue intelligence, Gong is the platform there. Or other things like task and project management with Asana, or focus group testing, user testing. There's tons of really good software tools there. So use them. Tools is one. Processes is another one. By that, I mean, learning how to do budget is an art and a science. And if you've mastered it, then that'll follow you. Now, it's not fun if you're like me and you're not like the accountant kind of profile. But if you get to understand how it works, whether you're a team contributor or a team lead, it''ll make your life so much easier, and people will really appreciate that. So in terms of processes, I would think about procurement process, budget process, project management itself. And finally, frameworks. Frameworks is, there's a ton of stuff out there. So don't reinvent the wheel. You have like a bill of material template for product launches with like the tiers and whatnot and what goes into each tier in the box. Just use that. Don't create your own. Like, why? Or like you need a good, like streamlined process to launch with like 8 steps. Just use what's on the shelf. And same, PMA is your BFF. Can't believe I did a 4-word sentence with 2 3-letter acronyms in it. PMA is your BFF. Tons of good assets and resources here. So we all love it. Let's just use it. Cool. Now let's recap. You saw the light of day. You found your groove. You learned from your mistakes. You started to like expand and broaden and flexing your muscles. You're measuring success, and you're standardizing on tools, people, and on tools, processes, and frameworks. So, 7-day, Sunday. On Sunday, you shall not work. So let's just be very French here. Time to relax, grab a croissant, goût de pain au chocolat, catch your breath, spend time with your loved ones, and maybe think about what's next. And then it's Monday again, right? So the week is over. And then you're like, hey, what should I do? Should I repeat and do that again? No is the answer. Of course not. Don't repeat everything I just said over time. There's a saying in French, which is tout le plaisir est dans le changement. What that means is you need to change things up, to spice it up, to make it fun, like bring some variety to your experience through the years. Again, I'm thinking like big picture, like 10-ish year journey of PMM. So how do you bring the variety to your experience is essentially the question. I think like an external recruiter would really appreciate if you can show that variety across a few dimensions, maybe at least one of them. So one dimension is, have you worked for both a big and a small company? If you have, that's a plus in my playbook. Another dimension is public or private. Another dimension is, going from one market to another. Now, I'm not saying we should just go crazy and have a completely inconsistent, career path and, like move around and jump from one to another. That makes no sense at all. But if you stay within, say, the IT buyer, that doesn't prove that you can also do other type of persona work with maybe like a sales buyer or any LOB buyer, right? So that's another dimension. Another dimension to think about to mix and match your experiences is going from a more like sales-led company to a more product-driven company, or maybe even engineering-driven company, or maybe even a freemium type of company, right? Or open source. So that's the variety aspect of it. The last thing I'll say about variety is also it's important to show that you've worked with pretty much any possible internal stakeholder on the planet, right, within the org. And it's hard to do that with one company. So that's why it's good to try to kind of cover the spectrum of roles that you would be working with. Of course, product, of course, sales, What about SDR? What about pre-sales? What about BD and alliances people? What about marketing? What about CS and CSMs? We're all connectors. Every PMM is a connector. So make sure you can show the world that you can connect those functions and those people. So that's it. You have your 7 steps to kind of grow as a PMM. Let's recap and then move to the final section for a minute or two. Step 1, day 1, let there be light. Day 2, find your groove. Day 3, learn from your mistakes. Day 4 is where you flex your PMM muscles and expand. Day 5 is measure, measure, measure. No measurement of success, no success. Day 6 is learning the frameworks, the tools, the processes. Day 7 is just chill by the pool. And day 8 is change things up. Think about variety. Le plaisir est dans le changement. Now, I want to wrap things up with one last thing and talk about values. I love the value stuff because everything I just mentioned really barely matters if you are not sharing the values with your team and vice versa, right? And your team can be the current one, the next one, the one you will end up leading, the one that you lead today. Values is everything. So this is one example of a past company I was with. That was the set of values we had for PMM. I'll just, I'll give them to you as examples, right? Collaborative. We ask others for ideas. We listen to their inputs. We share information. Accountable. We establish our goals. We stand by our actions. We stay engaged and we own our stuff. Impactful. We get it done. We have an impact on the business because of what we did and how we did it. With that, think about your own personal values at work and in life. Think about your team's values, whether you're an individual contributor or a team lead, and see how those map or maybe mismatch, and then think about ways to make them map better. The last thing I will say, and with that, I'll get back to my fun fact, is I'm a firm believer of embracing those core values. So educate yourself, be yourself. I know it sounds extremely cliche, but I do think it's worth reinforcing it. We're humans, we're professionals, but it comes after being humans. And so if you take a look at that stuff again, the goal here is not for me to talk about myself and give my own example. Like, I'm not a self-centered person. The goal is to encourage everyone to think individually about how these life examples or experiences have become a part of who you are as a person and how they can help you in the workplace. So for me, my example, again, I delivered a baby in a car. That means that I tend to keep my zen. I tend to remain calm at work while assessing the situation and the constituents and the dependencies and the stakeholders and what's at stake. Another example, as I said, where I live, I'm a foreigner. I'm a Frenchman. I live in California. I think because of that, I tend to show empathy and I tend to be a good listener and to be kind. So that's another good example, right? The last one I had was, and this is me with Lars, the drummer of Metallica. As I told you, I got to work with Lars from Metallica on a Dreamforce presentation 3 years ago or something. I think that, that's a sign that I try to keep it fun and enjoy the ride. And I try to rock the stage when I'm presenting. And I actually try to bring some musicality to my PMM work and my team. That's a fascinating topic, by the way, not to be covered today, PMM and music. So those are just examples to encourage you to think about your own stuff. So same for you. My CTA, my advice, take 10 minutes now to do your list. It'll help you grow. do the list of things you want to be, do the values, do the exercise. Nothing from your past should ever get shoved into a box. I think if you're a happy human being, you'll be a great leader, and you'll just make a wonderful team contributor or team lead. And in turn, you'll make your team happy. So that's it, on a bit of a cheesy note, but I still believe it's everything. I will say that happier human beings just make better professionals. So please take care of yourselves, find your balance, and stay healthy. Thanks for the time. If you want to contact me, LinkedIn is the way, Julien Sauvage. And shameless plug, but if you're interested, Gong, my company, is also hiring. So you can go and check out the career page on the website. With that, thanks again.
Welcome back to the Product Marketing Festival. I hope you're enjoying the content so far. I want to thank you all for joining us and send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you aren't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to all this week's content, along with a whole host of other exclusive content and tools. What's more, why not check out Product Marketing Core, our industry-renowned certification? Join hundreds of your PMM peers and get certified today. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post them in the comments section and get awesome advice from our experts. We've got plenty more magic up our sleeves that's guaranteed to blow you away. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the talks. Hi everyone, and I hope you are enjoying day 4 of the Product Marketing Festival. We have had an epic few days of content being broadcast out through LinkedIn Live, and today is no different. We are launching into a fantastic session now with Chris Hines from Zscaler, and yeah, very delighted to welcome you to the virtual stage, Chris. So over to you. And just before that, I want to remind everyone we are doing a live Q&A at the end. So any comments, things you want clarification on, or yeah, questions for Chris, get them in through the session, and I'll see you back here in about 25 minutes.
Phenomenal. Hey, Rose, thanks so much. And to the entire Product Marketing Alliance, thanks for the time here. Super thrilled to get a chance to speak with the audience about a subject that I think is super, super important, the subtle art of winning through customer centricity. So a little bit about myself. I've been in product marketing about 10 years, currently at a company called Zscaler. We are a cloud security company. We help individuals connect to applications from anywhere in the world, from any device, using our cloud delivered service. And I have the wonderful honor of working on the product marketing team as the director and solutions marketing lead for one of our key solutions here at Zscaler. But enough about me, more about kind of the subject at hand today. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of start off with this information that came from the product marketing report from 2020. And the thought here was just to get a feel for what's the sense of culture when you think about customer versus product, sales, etc. And we find, without surprise, that in most cases, a lot of companies, especially because they tend to be engineering focused, lead with the product first model. So we see about 36% of organizations lead from a product first perspective, which is actually the most common out of any. So not really surprising. It's good to see that about 1/3 do focus on the customer centric piece. But I will question them because I feel like in some cases, from a customer first perspective, you still tend to lead with a product conversation from a messaging standpoint. So let's talk a little bit about that. We're product marketers here, or maybe some of you might be in demand gen or sales, but our natural kind of propensity is to focus on our actual product itself. But it's a very kind of inward focus, right? We're focusing on only what we do and things like what are some of the new products that are coming up down the roadmap? What are some of the new cool tweaks that we're making to the existing product, enhance it in some way? You could be even highlighting some of the new hot features, or we tend to gravitate towards like what are some of the product integrations we have with larger companies like Microsoft and Salesforce, whoever it might be. But if you think about it, the conversation is always around the product. So it's like we're telling the world all the great things that we do. Now, the challenge from a customer perspective is it doesn't really feel like it's for them. And I'm sure many of you have been in meetings, maybe as a product manager leading a conversation at an earlier stage or in terms of the sales engagement themselves, and you start to see customers almost have this reaction, right? And it's funny, on Zoom and in the remote world, they're limited to just a little square there, right? So you can get a really zoomed in effect of kind of the moment that they make a face like this, right? Because we just start sounding just like every other vendor pitch that's promising them some amazing product that may or may not even solve their needs. So the perspective needs to shift from what we do to the problems and challenge that we're solving for our customers. And that's where this notion of customer centricity comes in. Now, my intent behind this presentation is not to go into a deep dive and talk about the definition of what customer centricity is. At the end of this, you're going to have some very tactical things that you can take away and implement within your very own company, right? But customer centricity is this notion where your whole company has a shared ethos where everything you're doing is about placing the customer in the middle and helping them have the best experience possible. This is from not just a business philosophy perspective, but the way that you design your products, the way that you operationalize your business as well is built around this notion. Now, the image you see here is actually from Salesforce. I think they do a phenomenal job of looking at things from a customer-centric model, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is to gather information from your customers so that you can define and build the best solutions out there. And ideally, it's with them. You start to see this trend in the market, right? Whether they're from any of the very popular logos that you see here, from Zscaler, Amazon, Lyft, you name it. We're starting to see a shift in the industry away from classic point products to actually services. So maybe you don't own the infrastructure itself, you're paying some kind of subscription to host it and manage it. My wife recently just bought a new car, and we're selling our old car on Carvana, which is this really cool service where they can come to your house, buy it, and take it away, right? As many of us are dealing with the reality of COVID-19 and work from anywhere, Airbnb and companies like Vrbo have taken off. Why? Because we all want to get out into the world and stay somewhere unique, but do it in a safe way. So this notion of service focus is driving the need to actually think more so about the customer themselves. So this idea of customer centricity, think of it as the main catalyst. When you think about the art of it, like what are the brush strokes required to actually adopt this model, to move it from just this cool sounding theory to an actual practical reality? And that's what we're going to talk about here, giving you the brush strokes and the understandings of how to actually do that. The most important piece, when you think about the beginning of it all, is you need to understand what are the touch points that you have with your customers. But even before that, what is the actual journey that they're going on to make a purchase or upgrade or buy more of your service itself? So the start point, what is the actual need that a customer has for your potential solution? You have to understand that, because everything you build, from a message, from a story flow, from a content perspective, is based on understanding this. Now, over time, as people matriculate through, from the start piece of perceived need to searching for the actual alternatives themselves, right? We tend to see that over 90% of our customers' decisions are actually made prior to actually engaging with us, right? So they're self-servicing, they're self-researching and educating themselves on things like videos, websites, analyst briefings. Right? If you're in the B2B space, many of you probably heard of analysts like Gartner and Forrester, who are helping them define some of the needs and criteria before they even engage with some of these vendors. Right? So once they search for these alternatives, they figure out a few, maybe 2 or 3 that they really care for, then they engage with the vendor themselves. This is very much the point where, we have our first kind of face-to-face reaction or, communication. Maybe it's in some kind of executive briefing center in person, or it's a Zoom or Microsoft Teams call. And they engage with us. The next piece is they make some kind of purchase. So if you are on a subscription piece, maybe they're swiping your credit card. In most cases, if you're focusing on larger size companies, there's something a little bit more hands-on from the purchase perspective. They use the service. And of course, over time, since many of you are selling solutions and services, you need to go deep and wide, right? So it's less about a transactional sale. It's more about how do you continue to provide value for a customer over an elongated period of time. So this notion of upgrading and buying more is incredibly important to first understand. So be honest with yourself. Like, there are many companies and really product marketing organizations within those companies that don't have clarity in terms of what that customer journey is and how it's customized to your exact needs. So research that, find it out, because this is a great starting point for thinking about things at a more customer-centric level. Now at the bottom, I've kind of called out what are some of the important things that you want to consider. This is not just something that marketing is going to do. This is something that sales, product management, even your people and culture or HR organization has to think about. Again, I talked about the notion of a shared ethos, a multi-team effort coming together to understand the steps in the journey and build the right story along the way. There's different models here. If you think about Starbucks versus maybe Dunkin' Donuts, right? The high touch versus low touch. Starbucks is about the experience. You order your maybe more expensive coffee, but you sit down, you spend time there, maybe you catch up on some work, some emails. There's this model here where you're paying for the experience versus in Dunkin' Donuts, maybe you're on your way to a work site. Maybe you're trying to just kind of get in, get out, and get your coffee because it tastes really good and leave. So think about that notion as it relates to your product as well. What you want to do is also consider the idea of what are the engagement points? What is the actual experience that your customers are having as they matriculate throughout this journey? You want to make those as unique and differentiated as possible so that the entire process, not just the purchase process, feels very customized to them. You're going to have to understand and be honest with yourself. Are you, determining areas of friction? Maybe you're really good at getting people to engage with you from a vendor perspective, but making the purchase and that hop to, a proof of concept to an actual closed deal is a challenge. Maybe you have, a considerable percentage of your pipeline stuck within that purchase cycle. You need to look at that and develop ways to accelerate that and kind of grease the skids from that perspective. In some cases, you might want to look at this from a zoomed in, almost micro customer journey as well, where maybe the goal is to take someone from an existing customer to maybe an upgraded edition or bundle. So there might be a zoomed in path there where you think about what are the required touch points along that journey as well. Most importantly, I would say once you understand what your journey is, you want to make sure that you're building your story in the right way. Again, it could be great that you understand your journey, but if what you're saying is still how great your product is and these new features or integrations that you've developed, the message kind of falls flat from that perspective. So one thing that our company here, and I know several others, especially in the Bay Area here within California, have leveraged is this really cool company called StoryBrand. So if you haven't heard of them, check them out, go research them. They have this notion of something called the S7, the StoryBrand 7. And if you think about a way that a story works, there's 7 core components. So think about your favorite movie. I love Fast and the Furious. I know it's not going to win many awards, but it's super entertaining. Other people love Star Wars. At the end of the day, the typical flow is this. You have some kind of hero. So it could be Luke Skywalker, right? That hero seems to be really honest, great person, almost want to be a friend with them, right? So again, the focus here is the hero, and the hero is about the individual. It's not about your product, right? That hero has a challenge. That challenge is in 3 different ways. Something really bad has happened to them that maybe they have no control over. They struggle with that emotionally from an internal perspective. Maybe they're sad about it, or they're confused, they're feeling overwhelmed. And then the third element of that challenge is that there's a philosophical challenge associated with that. So this feels wrong. There's no way that this terrible thing could happen to Luke Skywalker, right? His aunt and uncle are taken from him because, Darth Vader and all his crew go in and, destroy their town, whatever it might be, right? There's this challenge and it feels so wrong. Now, the third piece of that is that individual, that hero, meets a guide. You want to position yourself as the guide. You're Yoda. You're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are not the hero in the story. So that perspective is a really important thing to just sit and think about for a second. If when you engage with a customer, either from, it could be an email, it could be a white paper, it could be a meeting, it could be a webinar, it could be an event like this, whatever it might be, think about, are you positioning yourselves in the right way? You're the guide because why? You have the experience. You've done it before. You're trusted by many others that are very similar to this potential prospect or potential customer that's come to you to help solve a need. You give them a plan. That plan is, maybe in Luke Skywalker's pieces, is use the force, right? And our idea from, as vendors and working at B2C or B2B companies is use our service. We call them to action. There's a specific CTA here that they have to go and do, right? Maybe it's, defeat Darth Vader, right? Whatever it might be. In the end, they're going to help them avoid a failure, right? So avoid whatever potential pain would have come out of if you weren't there to guide them. And in many cases, if it's a happy ending, there's some kind of success in the end, right? The rebels win in the case of Star Wars, or even if maybe it's a bad ending, it's the hero in the story has learned something about themselves that they maybe previously didn't know before that. Maybe there's a divorce or the relationship ends at the end of the day, but the individuals are better off because of it, right? These 7 make up the core kind of framework of any story that you tell. And we've seen this and we've used this at Zscaler quite a bit. It works extremely well because it sets you up from an outline perspective. And by default, you're thinking things through at the customer-centric level, which of course is the most important thing to consider. Now, once you've actually understood your customer journey and you've designed this story, right? So you want to go through and be honest with yourself, right? Map out from a story brand 7 perspective, who's your hero in this case? Is there a key persona that you want to focus on? From a challenge perspective, understand what are they typically challenging, and you can look at maybe past experience that you've had with customers in the past. As a guide, you want to be able to call out things like, why do you have credibility in this space? Maybe use customer references, right, etc. Once you've mapped out that story from a customer-centric perspective, you then want to think about what are the different, I call them feelers, that are out there. So maybe, if customer centricity is important, you need to be able to develop some kind of feedback loop so you're constantly having this idea of what customers care about. And I think this is one of the most overlooked things. I don't tend to see many product marketers or even marketers in general thinking about the different touch points that they have with customers, and then how to actually take those touch points, take the data, and leverage that going forward as well. I touched on this before a little bit, where many of you are going to be selling services. The selling model for a service versus a transaction is very different. Transaction has maybe a large pool of customers, right? They're just swiping a card and that's it. They typically don't maybe make repurchases. They're just here for an individual transaction. That's that. And there's some companies where that's their core business model. But most of you, in the case of services, are going to be in a point where maybe your typical audience or potential audience isn't massive. So what you need to be able to do is extract as much value from those customers as possible. So that's where the notion of upsells and renewals, annual contract value, and upping that on a per company basis becomes really important. So these feelers become a direct, requirement when you want to be able to go and, convey or articulate the value of the actual service itself. So I wanted to take some time and actually go through some examples. We've done this here within Zscaler. This is not our Zscaler Google Analytics. This is just a shot that represents kind of what we mean by this. But the notion here is to understand the digital being of your customer. So what are they typically engaging with, right? When are they engaging with it? Are you seeing trends in terms of content types or topics that you want to understand? And if so, what you want to do is double down on those, right? So this idea of a web feeler, the digital self of the customer, understand that. Use tools like Google Analytics. There's tons of other ones out there as well that you might want to consider as well from a customer-centric perspective. So that's one example here. Now at Zscaler, my team kicked off something called the Customer First Initiative. So we developed 3 feelers. The first one was, of course, this web-based example here. Another example was using executive briefing center conversations or EBCs. Some people call them virtual briefing centers, whatever it might be. There is so much information in terms of, especially on the prospect perspective, in terms of what customers are asking for. So if you are not typically involved in executive briefing center for customer meetings, make sure you are. Right? As product marketers, in some cases you're not presenting, in some cases you are. I always gravitate to the point where if you're going to be building the message and maybe the presentations that are used in those customer briefings, you want to be the one actually giving them versus being off to the side. It'll help you stand out, but at the same time, it'll also give you that feedback loop where you're understanding what customers are asking for, what are they struggling with, are there certain challenges with your message where you think they're gold, but the customer kind of is not understanding the value that you're trying to get out of it. So much goes on within those customer meetings that you can continue to just leverage. Now, you want to be able to collect some of that information, right? Maybe you do it at the vertical level, maybe maybe not as intricate yet, you're not looking at verticals, doesn't matter. You want to be able to capture that information, that feedback, right? And work that into your overall customer-centric plan as well. And the third recommendation would be understanding the existing customer. So at Zscaler, we implemented something called customer clinics. So a couple of times a month, we offer these customer clinics. And what we do is essentially we reach out to a specific set of existing customers and we meet with them about the service that they purchased. And we go through almost kind of, each session is different, but we deal with different topics around things we know that our customers tend to struggle with. Maybe it could be something around deployment. Maybe it could be something around, understanding one of the key components that are very differentiated from us, but maybe are just hard for a customer to actually implement in place or understand how to implement. It's a great opportunity to continue to educate customers. And what you'll do is remove some of the typical barriers that you have with those customers, right? Because maybe one of the reasons why they're not able to repurchase or buy more of your potential services, they're not understanding it from a value perspective as much as you need. So you can develop the proper tools to do that. In our case, we developed the customer clinics, but you might have an even more creative means of reaching out to that existing customer and helping them purchase more of your product. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And that's how you increase your annual contract value. Most subscription companies, one of the biggest metrics that you look for in terms of financial success is year-over-year growth, and are your existing customers staying, and are they buying more? This is a great way in which you can do that. So the combination of your web feeler, your customer meeting feeler, and then your existing customer meeting feeler in terms of VBC versus this, those are the three main ones that you want to be able to push for and leverage as part of your customer-centric model. Now, the last kind of core area is around segmentation. And I feel like this is, and I mentioned it here, obviously, it's one of the most overlooked areas when you think about marketing. Because as product marketers, maybe segmentation is done by demand gen. Maybe you feel like your role within that is maybe at a high level, you're dictating what persona are we going to go after, what's the message, and then all the segmentation, everything is handled by a different team, where they're figuring out that you're going to segment by company size or geography or whatever it might be. And the notion, of course, is to get to a point where you're leveraging segmentation in the right way. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Right? This particular image is from a leadership course that I took from the Wharton School of Management from the University of Pennsylvania. It's called Selling Through Customer-Centricity. I highly recommend it. If you haven't taken it, check it out. It's offered by the Wharton School, which is a phenomenal, academic school to be a part of and to learn from, to do a lot of good work there. In terms of segmentation, you have these kind of different options still. On the lower end, in terms of level of customization, you have kind of just general advertising. It's very cost effective from that perspective, but the level of focus is a little bit kind of less so from a segmentation perspective than some might want, right? So you have the opportunity for, in this case, to say your message kind of gets lost in the ether as well. On the right-hand side, you have this level of, super highly focused segmentation. So maybe you're launching something like an ABM program, account-based marketing. So it's super, super custom. There are some higher costs that are associated with that for that segmentation. But as the bulk of what you want to be looking at is kind of just having some kind of, classic segmentation strategy when you're kind of breaking up your potential audience into a couple of key ways. And I'll kind of talk about that and what that looks like in a second. First off is understanding what are the ways in which you can actually do segmentation. So you can think of things like the geography of where that customer is working from. And many of us do this automatically. It's kind of like the low-hanging fruit when you hear segmentation. It's like, okay, we sell into a global base of Americas, EMEA, and maybe APJ as well. Let's just make it super simple. Let's focus on what the specific America's programs will be versus APJ versus EMEA, and we have some semblance of a breakdown of what the revenue structure is in terms of what we're generating year over year from each of those revenues. And if we're really, really, excited here, we'll look at things at the city level. Most kind of marketers do that. Or the second most common is the orange box you see here. We'll do it by demographic, by age of the individual, who they are, what their potential income is. You can look at, their title. Another demographic that's probably typically mentioned is, revenue as well. So if you're looking at certain revenue bands where maybe if you sell to a more, expensive or a larger audience because you sell at a higher price point, you might want to focus on companies who have large income, right? There's a variety of things you can look at. These are typically the two that everyone uses, geo and demographic. What we tend to forget are the additional two, so behaviors or psychographics. And I will state, you can use these individually, you can use a mix of these as well, depending on your situation. The behavior aspect is really interesting. So more so about like by age is different from demographic. When we say by age here from a behavior perspective, if you have a product that maybe skews towards maybe Gen Y or maybe a Gen Z versus a baby boomer, you want to be able to understand that, right? There's certain behaviors that people in that age group take that are different. So for example, if maybe you are going for, someone who's in the teen age group between 13 and 17, maybe it's more about TikTok and their behaviors are using social media from that perspective to share all the cool experiences that they're having, or maybe on Instagram as well. Another thing you can look at are actually, what are their purchase patterns? So I think a really good example of this would be, of course, during work from home, a lot of us have started using more services, right? Maybe you're ordering services to deliver your groceries, for example. And maybe if you're more used to delivering your groceries over the internet or through a service, you're most likely have a higher probability of wanting to maybe order your food from that perspective as well, like DoorDash, or use some kind of home chef or service that ships you ingredients for a dinner that you would then use as a recipe to go and make your own dinner. So past purchases can provide a pretty good indicator in terms of what other similar behaviors that individuals want to take. You of course take that information to figure out a way to actually position that to your key personas that are important for you to sell your service. And the last piece is a psychographic perspective here. This is a little bit on the more unique side. I see less of this in the market than probably any of them. The idea is to look at personalities, look at key hobbies as well as indicators for potential buying behavior that you can look for as well. So again, understanding what the different segmentation strategies that exist are really important, and don't just limit yourself to the two in this little pink box over here, because those are kind of, while classic, are definitely missing a huge part of the behavior and actually the personality perspective as well. So once you do this and you select your actual segmentation strategy from that perspective, it's actually understanding who do you want to go after. So we're going to talk about 4 different things. How do you actually find and identify these are the segments you want to go after? You want to look at what those needs are across each of those different segments. I'll even give you a template that you can use to determine from a numeric perspective what makes the most sense from a business standpoint to go after. And then lastly, we'll talk about focus. So this is a really cool example. This is part of kind of a takeaway I had from the Whitman School of Management training course that I took as well. And the idea here was to figure out, what are your potential segments? In this example, I've broken down into 3. We are in the cloud security world. We compete with many other vendors in that space. And all of our key personas have some kind of, relationship with either security. Maybe they are on the network front, or they own the application, or they're responsible for the user experience on the end user perspective itself. So we looked at 3. We said pioneers, distressing ones, and security overall. So to come up with these 3, you got to think about, if you were to think about, 100 of your customers or prospects that you've spoken with and build a little bit of a profile for them, what would that look like? In the case of pioneers, it was, we are a cloud delivered service. It's more of a kind of a modern approach. We wanted to go after people who are more likely to be introducing newer technology and capabilities into their actual organization. So these are the pioneers, the leaders in the space who are not afraid to kind of try something new themselves, or in this case, be the first. The second segment were the distrusting ones. We started seeing that there were some customers where they didn't really want to go with some of the modern technologies because they didn't exactly have trust built up with them over time. So they were usually the ones who were going to adopt the technology, like a cloud delivered technology, a little bit later than others. They want to kind of wait to see how it works out, not be the ones that go out and be the pioneers and try something new and be kind of on the maverick front. But they eventually do adopt the technology, right? At the end of the day, once they see enough customer references, once enough of their peers have actually gone out and adopted that technology already, they tend to take it on. And the last group that we selected was this notion about security overall. Didn't matter how the product worked. Didn't matter, how much it cost or what, from that perspective, it was, does it do what I need it to do? Does it provide the level of security? If it does not, it's not for me. So we looked at these three different segments once we identified them, and we agreed on this between product marketing, product management, and sales leaders. That okay, what will be the next step there? The next piece is you look at the actual needs that are required across that. So the needs are consistent no matter who the segment is, right? Think of it like as your core persona, a customer you're trying to sell to, what do they need? In our case, it was they needed to be able to deploy quickly. So simple deployment was one of the most important factors. The other piece was, especially in the remote world, work from anywhere here, and even as people start to move back into the office, the idea of kind of a hybrid workforce, like user experience is everything. Because a lot of times the people who are using our technology are executives, they're people who are on the road, on the sales team trying to actually help close deals. They could even be B2B customers who are using our service to actually get access to the applications, and of course, partners as well. So user experience is a very important need from our customer base. The third piece was around security. In our case, we're a security company we offer many services. Security is a large part of that. So world-class security. And then lastly, since we're a cloud delivered solution, reliability and being able to scale up over time is a really huge value factor from a cloud perspective. So we looked at our three segments on the top, right? The pioneers, the trusting ones, and security overall. And we ranked, from a 1 to 4, 1 being the highest for each segment. What's most important? So you see the numbers here, 1, 3, 4, and 2 in the case of pioneers. What you want to do is make sure that you don't really see any overlap of numbers between those. So like, for example, for simple deployment, you don't want it to be 1, 1, 1 across the board, because what that tells you is that you didn't do a strong enough job of determining your actual segment. So you don't want any shared numbers across that, because if so, your pioneers, and maybe there was another one, let's say, Mavericks, they would share too many of the needs that were overlapped. And what that's going to do is kind of skew your results, right? You want clear, definitive segments, because that's the nature of what segmentation is. And if not, go back to the drawing board, fix it up. When you come back, you want it to look something like this, right? Differences across each of the actual fields themselves. Now, once you've actually determined those needs and ranked them, you actually want to understand how do you actually give weight to the different segments and the different criteria that's required. So for example, your selection criteria could be segment size. How large is the actual number of pioneers or distrusting ones or security overall? 1 being small, 3 being large. The growth rate, so how fast is this segment growing across each of these as well? Now, in my case, the example of pioneers, it was about a rating of 2. The distrusting ones was 1 and then 3, right? You get the point across each. The lifetime value to us, this is a really important one. Based on how you make money, your revenue, your business model, in our case, it's subscription sales, the lifetime value to us is across, a 1-year deal, 3-year deal. How do we upsell them from there? And our pricing that's kind of built into that. So if we understand that perspective and understand how the business makes money, we actually looked at it and said, okay, each of these segments, what's the potential value to us? And we found that in the case of pioneers, that was about a 3, which is the highest you can get. Our value to customers is just as important. So you have the value to us as a company and to you, as well as the value that you're actually providing your service to the actual customer themselves. So the idea of 1 to 3. And then lastly, competition. How competitive is this space? So the scale here is a little bit different. 1 means it's a very highly competitive space. 3 is low competition. So you don't necessarily want to go for a high competition space because you have to compete with potentially people who are bigger than your organization. So number three, this idea of low competition is important. Now the notion here is you add everything up. At the end of the day, you select the actual one that makes the most sense for your business, right? So in our case, it was the pioneers, the people who are willing to go and bring in new technologies, the people who value customer experience and scale and et cetera. So you want to actually clarify why you decided on this. It's a really good thing to do when you go to, speak with your demand gen team, et cetera, helping them understand the why behind it as well. So you determine what your segments are, what you focus on. Now, the little cheat sheet here is that really what you want to be able to do is kind of map here. There's typically 4 different types of customers that you're going to see out there. And you see them mapped here in these different colored grids. The idea here is on the top is economic value to the customer. So what your service provides to them. And on the left, it's the customer lifetime value to you. So again, for them and for you. The idea here is you want to be focused on this top left. The best customers are the people where you have a huge amount of value that you're providing to them from a cost perspective and saving, or it makes sense for them to invest in your service. At the same time, they're going to be the ones that help you drive a ton of money year over year, and you can build long-term relationships with. Right? And you see kind of the descriptions of the other ones from there. I would say, the worst customers would be, of course, people where you have very little value to you over the course of their lifetime, and they don't like your product. Now, in many cases, those are the folks who most likely won't even become your customer to begin with. But I think just for posterity's sake here, understanding which of these 4 you're going after and making sure that you're going after that top left quadrant as much as possible and as effectively as possible as well. So the brush strokes, I talked about a lot, a really short amount of time, and I talk fast. The idea of know the customer journey, right? Everything from the start point to not the end, the classic end, because you really want to end at the upgrade piece. How do you continue to allow them to continue to buy more over time? The second piece was telling a story that puts them at the center. They are the hero, not your product. You're Yoda and they are Luke Skywalker. Think about it from that perspective. Use that template in everything you do. It could be writing a short email as a follow-up to a virtual event that you just did, over the course of the last year. It could be a blog, you name it. It could be a video script. That story brand 7 becomes the template you use for a customer-centric story. Your feelers across web, prospect meetings, and even things like these customer clinics that you can set up to hear a feedback loop from existing customers and what they struggle with, so you can break those barriers down and drive additional value. Segmentation, and of course, knowing where to focus. In the end, for us, it was the pioneers because of the reasons that we stipulated. Now, when you do this correctly, there's a lot of great things that come out of it. And so it's not just the fact that you get to kind of feel better about yourself. The customer, of course, feels better as well. Look at it from this perspective. Your customers understand that you care about and understand their challenges. They're more likely to trust you as a result of that. Since you're not having conversations at the product level where it's talking about speeds and feeds and features, you have less conversations around, do you have feature parity with some competitor, right? The conversation is at the value level and deals close faster because of it. You're not focusing on trying to, outcompete or to show that you have some kind of capability that the customer's looking for, because you get to set the arena and have conversations within that arena, not have to deal with the customers themselves or the competitors in that space. The other piece is you get to stand out from every other company that's out there, right? If everyone else is saying product centric, they're going to rest assured they're going to select a product that sounds like, or the solution that solves their problem. And if you understand more about them and telling a story in a way that shows them that, you're going to be differentiated as a result of that. The idea here is that when you look at things at a product-centric level, you are selling with things that you can build. The idea here is to build what you can sell, right? So this has implications not just on marketing, but also product management and the strategy as well. The product becomes just a conduit versus the customer-centric pieces around why we're doing this at all. This is something that you'll find that becomes an entire kind of company-wide ethos. Here at Zscaler, we have a corporate culture where customer obsession is one of our core pieces. Everyone we hire, we bring in, we want them to have that same level of understanding as well. Because when you're doing this, you're able to do so much. You're able to learn how you deliver services better than others. You are able to open up vectors with customers where they're sharing elements of their challenge that you maybe typically wouldn't have heard if you were to just talk about how great your product is as well. And at the end of the day, this is a means of which you can actually drive more revenue for the business. So super important to consider this. I to implore you, go out and try to figure out ways to understand the journey, tell the story in the right way, push your whole company, not just your product marketing team, but your demand gen side, your product management team as well, to think in this way. I know that when you work with engineers and product managers, they tend to be very in love with their baby, right? But you're going to have to educate them on, as the face of the company, as really the message of the company, it's on you to go and push for customer centricity. And as a result of that, you think you're going to see some really great results. And these are just a few of what that looks like in terms of examples. So I appreciate your time, everyone. This has been great to be able to speak with you. I'd love for you to follow up with me, ask me any questions you want. I've placed here my email address. I have my LinkedIn profile as well. And I'm happy to take any questions if we have time, or if I'm overrode, please let me know. But it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. That was an awesome presentation. So much information there. We are a bit over time, but I'm going to squeeze in one question.
Sure.
So it's from Olga, and it is, how do you determine the rank for the needs across segments?
That's a great question. So it's going to differ by company. So I think a lot of it's going to be, some of it's, I wouldn't say common sense. You want to kind of do your research, look at some of the past experiences you've had. Think about your business model, and how do you make money? And then think about what's most important based on those needs. You were going to have to kind of rechange these and tweak them over time, right? To tune them out, or tune them over time. But this is a great kind of starting point. I think the really important thing there is just understand that there is a framework there, that you do need to be looking at certain points of criteria. The ones that I've outlined there are kind of important from a Zscaler perspective. Right? If you sell a cloud service, I would model it very similar to how I had them in this example as well, because it's going to kind of set you up for success. But hopefully you found that helpful, and I'm happy to share this presentation as well, so you have that template with you as well, Olga.
Absolutely great. Well, there's some lovely feedback coming in as well. People really enjoyed the session. So yeah, just want to say a massive thanks again for joining us, Chris, at the Product Marketing Festival. And stay tuned, everybody, because we have another presentation coming right up.
Thanks, Rose. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Welcome back to the Product Marketing Festival. As we prepare to unleash another exciting session, I just want to say a massive thank you to our partners, sponsors, you, and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this event to life. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, mentors, our entire back catalogue of event content, and much, much more. What's more, you can continue the conversation in the PMA's Slack community. If you aren't already a member, then hop on over and join the discussions today. And remember, this is your chance to get involved. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments section for our speakers to answer. It really is that simple. Let's resume the sessions.
Nice to meet you. I'm Stephanie Perozo, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Contentful, and I'd like to thank you for joining this session today. I'd also like to thank the Product Marketing Alliance for giving me this opportunity to present and for creating this platform where we as a community can share tips, exchange ideas, and open up opportunities to further develop and grow this really exciting field. Today, I'm excited to share a framework for how you can scale your messaging and positioning efforts that has worked for me and which will hopefully be helpful for you too, no matter which company size or stage of growth you're at. As we all know, product marketers are busy people, and the last thing that we should be worried about is whether people are using our messaging and positioning in the right way, or whether they're using the most accurate and up-to-date version. And finally, whether it'll evolve as your business grows. Before we start, I'd like to give a little bit of an introduction and some context. I'm a product marketer at heart, and I have been fortunate to have been given a lot of responsibility throughout my career, ranging from analyst relations to global sales enablement, covering both enterprise go-to-market motions as well as product-led growth. And throughout this presentation, I'll share some key concepts that I picked up while working at some of the most trailblazing companies in the marketing technology space, including Optimizely, Binder, and now at Contentful. And these principles have really shaped my view on how to scale out messaging and positioning. So with these learnings, I hope that it'll help you save precious time in your day-to-day, make messaging self-serve for your key stakeholders, and also build a foundation for messaging that scales. The assumption for this session is that you already have a messaging and positioning framework in place, and that you're evolving it and adapting it based on your company direction or customer feedback. In this session, we'll specifically focus on how you can go from awkward and potentially inconsistent messaging to really awesome messaging for all of your audiences in the most scalable way possible. So let's get started with understanding messaging at different stages of growth. And I'd like to draw the analogy of growth stages that we as humans experience, starting from adolescence to being grown-ups and becoming more experienced and tenured. At the startup stage, it feels like this image where everyone is building a rocket ship while it's in orbit. This is really a fun stage of the business when you're defining and redefining your messaging based on your new value propositions, new capabilities that you bring to market, and getting to that point of defining product market fit. It's the kind of stage when you're an adolescent where it's basically the hashtag YOLO period of one's life, where you're testing out new things, you're starting to understand your place in the market, and you might be a little bit rebellious and want to challenge the status quo. You're even picking out your own clothes because you're independent. You're trying different things on and defining that character. The challenge is that at this stage, you're also very impressionable. And you might want to try all the cool, new, hip, and buzzwordy things to try to fit in. And during this stage of the business, messaging typically falls victim to inconsistency. When change is the only constant, speed and flexibility are essential driving forces to keep up with the market momentum, but ensuring that you're authentic is especially important. Now let's move up to the next stage, scale up. This is when all engines are roaring and typically where us PMMs are brought in to make some messaging magic happen. This is the stage that Contentful is in right now. You're growing up fast and you're evolving and you're learning and you're establishing your position amongst your peers. In business terms, you're participating in analysts or market reports, and you're defining what you stand for. You're establishing your point of view. And you're also trying to get others around you to understand it. At this point, your old clothes, your messaging, your old messaging doesn't fit anymore. And you're developing a more defined style and character. But the reality is, if people don't understand your position or perspective, those around you will make assumptions about it and define it. And this also means that as more people are involved with your messaging and positioning efforts, such as new hires or new leadership or your VCs, your coaches that are getting you to that next stage, your messaging might be stretched or modified or redefined. And because of all of these forces, you might end up with awkward messaging that is inconsistent, potentially incomprehensive, or in the worst case, irrelevant for your audiences. And just like in the startup adolescent stage of the business, speed and flexibility are key, but also predictability. So as we move on to the next stage, we see how messaging evolves as you become more established in the market. your messaging will take on a different form. At this stage, it feels like you've made it and the future is bright, mostly because you're not concerned about survival anymore. You're actually successful as a business. This is a point in life when you're ready to settle into a house, you've established a routine, you've developed skills which you're known for, but you're typically also a bit more risk averse. And accidents can become costly and you simply don't recover as quickly as you did when you were younger. So as mentioned before, at this stage, predictability is super important, but also repeatability and scalability, because as your footprint grows, so does your span of control. And this opens up the door to a lot more risk as a business. A few lessons which I learned having experienced messaging at these different stages is that messaging is sensitive, it can get personal, it can also be political. And the most well-intentioned folks will want to have a say in it. But this raises the question, if everyone has a say in your messaging, who should anyone listen to? The second learning is that it's easy to lose control of your messaging, and the market and your peers will take it into their own hands and define it for you if it's unclear. Think about the time that you saw some rogue messaging being used on the website or in some sales collateral. So this begs the question, how do you gain control in the first place? And finally, if you don't have a way to manage your messaging, it will become diluted and potentially irrelevant for your target audiences, especially in the most critical stage of growth, from startup to scale up. So you may be asking, how do I avoid all of these terrifying scenarios? And what I've learned is that it comes down to these three key principles: categorize, atomize, and curate your messaging. You can apply any of these three principles today or at any point of your messaging journey. My recommendation would be to do them all together if you can, if you have the time and the space to do so. Nevertheless, if it seems that this is a very daunting task and a monumental effort, then applying any one of these principles will still get you a very long way. So let's dive into each one of these. Categorizing is really about building a taxonomy for messaging. Having worked in the digital asset management space at Binder, I know that the word taxonomy can seem like a very scary thing, but really you've already done this at the point that you've built out your messaging and positioning framework. In your messaging and positioning framework, you've probably built out top-level messaging supported by your value proposition, some key unique selling points, capabilities, and features. So there you have it. Half of the work is already done, but there's more. Categorization is about grabbing that foundational messaging document and untangling it to fit common themes or buckets based on how your audience will use it. And for this exercise, I'd recommend to start with some key use cases with the highest impact. For example, sellers are your #1 partners in crime. So you need to understand where they struggle with your messaging today so that you can simplify it and organize it and make it easier for them to find and use. Getting clear on how you speak about your product is one bucket. Your differentiators or your unique selling points is another bucket. Key use cases and solutions, that's a completely separate bucket. Marketing are also your key stakeholders. You can't expect everyone in your marketing team to know the product or the customer or the market as well as you do. So helping them get messaging out to market is essential. Finally, external partners such as distributors or PR agencies would be in my top 3 priority list because they amplify and evangelize your messaging and market. And you want to help them articulate your value as clearly and as consistently as possible. Here's how our messaging taxonomy works. And you can see a level of hierarchy by the different labels, but also by the level of granularity of the different messages. For example, we only have one strategic company narrative, but we have a few key customer benefits and a ton of capabilities. And what helped me build out this taxonomy was our customer stories. One of our values at Contentful is Start with the customer and work your way back. So when building out my taxonomy, I started looking at all of our customer stories, our public-facing case studies, and I picked up on a few patterns, which made me realize that our customers speak about the value that we deliver in very different ways, depending on which persona we're speaking to. So this helped me identify that KPIs can actually be split into two different buckets: business outcomes and platform outcomes, which are directly attributable to a platform. When building out your messaging taxonomy, build it around how people will use it. Understand common terminology used in your business and build a taxonomy around that so that people can find your messaging faster. Remember that time when someone asked you, where's that deck with that story about that customer and that really cool thing that they did? I think it was something about speed and APIs. Well, I need it for a presentation yesterday. And typically your brain starts to scan its own database and try to understand, is this the same story that we're talking about? Are we really thinking about the same things? Well, building a taxonomy will eliminate that ambiguity and lets you filter down based on the key messages identified. I personally think that creating a foundational messaging document is a great starting point. But then asking people across your business to go in this 20, 30, 40-page document, I hope yours isn't as long as ours is, but asking them to go and control find and filter through this heavy document, I don't feel that it's user-friendly. So instead, by organizing and categorizing messaging into certain buckets, you can make it easier to find based on the common terminology. And a taxonomy should really be built with the future in mind in case you launch new products or services or lines of business. You will also want to make sure that it is flexible enough to update and layer on additional information and messaging as your business evolves. Talking about flexibility, let's go into the second principle around atomizing your messaging. Atomizing your messaging is about breaking it down into small chunks. It's not just about parsing a PDF or a Word document into sections. Atomizing is about turning your messaging into meaningful standalone bits that can be used anywhere in any context. You should be able to read it on its own and it be self-explanatory and comprehensive. When you do this, what you'll want to do is break down your messaging. And when you think that you've broken it down enough, break it down some more. By doing this, you're creating messaging that is reusable. And this is what's going to be a real time saver for you as a product marketer. This mindset is something that content strategists evangelize because it makes content reusable and thereby also consistent. This is also something that Contentful pioneers, and it's create once, publish anywhere approach. So I have my employer to thank for helping me as a product marketer think about messaging in this way. Breaking it down lets you create a library of messaging to choose from that can be used dynamically in various formats and in different scenarios. And an important part of this entire process is building a model for how messaging relates to each other. I was fortunate enough that my manager felt that scaling messaging at this stage of growth of the business was important enough to invest software into. So rather than creating these unwieldy, long messaging docs that can quickly become outdated, we were able to invest in something called GrokSpark, which is basically a messaging hub built by product marketers for product marketers. And what it does is it helps you build your messaging taxonomy, like I showed you earlier, and then atomize your messaging to start building a database. And from there, you can make however many combinations you want, whether it's for sales enablement collateral or for website or campaign briefs. And you can make sure that your messaging is consistent across all of these different touch points. To round off, if you want your messaging to be used everywhere, you have to make sure to break it down into small chunks so that it can fit anywhere. My main tips here would be to have a multi-channel mindset for your messaging. Think of all the possible places where your messaging could live, such as your website or your podcast description, or potentially even external review sites on a mobile app or in a CTA. You'll want to ensure that you can add new information over time And as I mentioned, a live doc with view-only permissions is better than a PDF, because a PDF will become quickly outdated and it's really hard to track if somebody has downloaded it once onto their computer and you're not able to find and retrieve that to update it again. My last tip would be make sure that you have a way to assemble messaging. We use GrokSpark for this, but you can also use a messaging library, deck, or document, or sheet. With this approach to atomizing your content, you're bound to get more mileage from every bit of messaging that you produce. And you won't be creating net new every single time. It'll be more about putting the ingredients together than having to run out to the shop last minute, try to buy all the ingredients for a 5-course meal right when the shop is about to close. Nobody needs that kind of pressure. So now that you've categorized and atomized your content, it's time to curate. The last principle that we're going to cover today is about curating your messaging for audiences. And when thinking about messaging for key stakeholders, it's a perfect opportunity to step back and do some discovery work to understand what your audience really need. Investing in knowing your audiences and walking them through what you have, all your categories and all of the different messaging ingredients that you have, will help you understand how they envision using it in their daily operations. And it will also make sure that it's adopted. At this stage of our messaging journey, I did 3 things which brought me back to my Optimizely roots. I segmented my audience into 3 groups based on the biggest impact. Sellers, because they have the direct contact with customers, marketing to drive consistency across channels, and our partner ecosystem who amplify our voice in market. Then I did some research to understand how they're using messaging today. And finally, I built out some hypotheses and tested out the approach with focus groups. I shopped around some templates, got feedback, did workshops, and landed on some key artifacts that they can use in a self-serve way, which I will show you now. What we're looking at here is spinning up messaging combinations, literally in under 5 clicks, or in about 20 seconds, where you choose the messaging variables upon which you want to actually base your content, and there you have it. So remember that time when someone asked you, do we have that customer story around scalability? And because requests like this are unpredictable in product marketing world, we should be prepared for any scenario and any messaging request for any audience. Creating and curating upfront will help with that process. For partners, we realized that we needed to provide them extra guidance around our messaging. And it's kind of like brand guidelines, but it's really about our messaging and positioning. So when one of our partners reached out to us, thanking us for the messaging document that we created, this is when I personally did a little happy dance. One of our partners wanted to use our messaging for a campaign that they were working on. And they didn't need all of our messaging details and everything. They needed a curated, shorter version. And we made this available via our partner portal. And it's so rewarding to see that our messaging is expanding beyond our 4 walls and into our partner ecosystem. And the best part is that having this live link on our partner portal makes sure that they always have our latest messaging and positioning, regardless of whether we update our tagline or boilerplate. And at Contentful, we're in the fortunate position that we're the leading content platform that pioneered headless content management. But when you're going through this crazy rapid growth, you need to make sure that your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders have the latest and greatest messaging so that they can evangelize it and amplify it in market too. And as a next step, I'm really excited about continuing this messaging journey with different teams across the business, such as our sales engineering team, who will help refine and further strengthen our messaging, as well as our developer relations team, who are already going into our messaging hub and helping us refine and prioritizing our messaging for certain audiences. All in all, messaging is a team sport. And I'm fortunate that teams across Contentful also see the importance of scaling our messaging consistently across the business. My main tips for the curating part of your messaging is consider how you can have a live link versus a static PDF that can become quickly outdated. And see how you can drive adoption by building messaging templates that are self-serve, easy to edit, potentially with filters or dropdowns, so that you can drive messaging adoption across your business. So to round off, remember these 3 principles with your messaging efforts. In a fast-paced scale-up environment, when you're gearing up for the big leagues, you want to be ready for any kind of change and build a categorization structure that will stand the test of time. Atomize and break down your messaging, and then break it down some more so that you can easily reuse it and save a ton of time when you're spinning up messaging combinations. Finally, make it as easy as possible for any audience to use by curating artifacts that will drive adoption of your messaging and positioning framework so that you can drive messaging consistency during this critical stage of growth. This is only the beginning, and we have big plans for our messaging and positioning as we scale. All of our marketing and campaign briefs are already being informed by our messaging hub, and we're also aligning all of our messaging across sales enablement materials. As a next step, we want to ensure that our customers have a smooth and consistent messaging journey all the way from our website through to our in-product experience. The best part is that we now feel confident that we're going to be able to skip that awkward, inconsistent stage of messaging and fast track our way to awesome as we scale. Why? Because we've already built a solid foundation from which we can continue to build upon. Thank you so much for joining the session today. And I hope that these 3 principles will help your messaging efforts go from awkward to awesome as quickly as possible. And if you ever want to chat or share ideas, please don't hesitate to contact me via email, stephanieperozo@gmail.com, or via LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Being an amazing product marketing leader doesn't happen by chance. It happens by habit. Product marketing certified leadership has been built on the back of decades worth of experience from some of the world's best known brands with one goal in mind: helping you be the best leader you can be. Crammed with real life case studies, over 12 hours worth of content, templates, exams, and more, this course is everything you need to lead with authority, confidence, influence, and innovation. Every piece of material within the 7 modules and 29 chapters has been vetted, tested, and approved by senior level product marketers from companies like Amazon, Uber, and HubSpot, serving up game-changing insights throughout. By the time you've wrapped up the final module, you'll be able to define what it takes to be a great product marketing leader, build and scale your team, understand how to successfully manage your existing team, use methods for leveraging data, know how to become the voice of the customer, understand how teams work cross-functionally, and improve your strategic thinking. The beauty of the course is you'll have the freedom to work your way through the modules at a pace to suit you. It's 100% self-paced. You'll even get lifetime access to the curriculum, paving the way for refresher sessions forevermore. Visit productmarketingalliance.com to get leadership certified and spearhead your journey to the top.
Hello, wherever you're joining us from today, I want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Product Marketing Festival. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, speakers and participants who together have made this event possible. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you aren't already, you can become a PMA member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, mentors, and our entire library of on-demand event content. Make sure you have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice directly from our expert speakers. Or continue the conversation with your fellow product marketers in the PMA Slack community. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco Bram. I'm excited to be here. But first off, I want to apologize for not having my camera on. About a week ago, I had a minor procedure and I still have some bandages on. I'm doing great. However, I wanted to spare you the horror of looking at me while I have bandages on. Therefore, I have my video off, but I will still make this very engaging for you. So let's start off with how product marketing has evolved to become a critical role in a 21st century organization to really drive innovation and champion the customers internally. So if you look at the pace of change, it has accelerated at a level that adoption of new products or services far outpaces that of adoption of 50 or even 100 years ago. For example, it took 68 years for airlines to reach 50 million passengers. It took 62 years for automotive companies to reach 50 million drivers. It only took 6 years for Uber to hit 50 million monthly active riders. So that's because technology in the last 20 years has accelerated the adoption of products and services. But equally, it has also accelerated the change and the evolution of product marketing. If you look back at the early beginnings of marketing in the United States, it truly started with Tiffany's product catalog, which really was the beginnings of marketing and a true definition of product marketing, where you would feature a product with a value proposition and a price. Sears really took the product catalog to a whole new level, and really making the marketing catalog the pinnacle of marketing in these years, where again, product marketing was the function driving all of this work. And if you look at the evolution of marketing, it took another 50 years until you saw a new way to do marketing with print ads. Then radio ads came along, TV ads, telephone marketing, SMS, text messaging. It always took 1 to 2 to 3 or 4 even decades for you to see true evolution in marketing. But you hit the 90s with the introduction of the internet, then smartphones, and then SEO, SEM, social media, and wearable technologies. And today, there's so many different channels that the traditional marketing manager role or product marketing manager role no longer applies. You need hyper-specialized marketing managers to be really owners of the different content and channels that exist out there. So where does product marketing fit in all of this? How does the function of product marketing evolve to keep up with all this pace of change? And honestly, I believe today product marketing is probably benefiting from all of this evolution and all of this change. Product marketing is now a true critical function in any organization, driving upstream marketing as well as downstream marketing. So we always say that product marketing has two functions: being the voice of customer and helping to extract actionable insights from a lot of customer data by working with data science, UXR, sales, or even product management. But then once you have all of that data, you want to help develop a solution, a service that truly is aligned with what customer wants and needs. And you want to be able to communicate that very effectively. And that's when you do your second part of the role, which is the downstream product marketing, working with marketing research, analytics, performance marketing, with paid channels, own channels with CRM and web, and even PR and media to raise awareness. Product marketing is really the conductor of this entire orchestra that is composed of very hyper-specialized musicians. And if they all play at their own tune, you just get a bunch of noise, which is very common in multiple companies out there where you get tons of ads and none of those ads mean anything to you. Either the service isn't right or the way they communicate to you isn't right. It's really up to the conductor, which is really the go-to-market architect, which is really under the product marketing function. That's, follows the role of bringing all these different data insights together, build a robust go-to-market plan, brief the different teams on how to execute and drive with a consistent tone of voice and visual language. So more than ever, product marketing is a critical role in any organization. I'm excited for it because not only demand is high, but also the responsibility that falls under product marketing is increasing. So what I want to talk to you today is how product marketers can distill customer data into actionable insights. I'm going to give you 3 separate examples of 3 different ways product marketing can have a pivotal role in an organization. Using data to solve a business or customer problem, using data to inform a marketing campaign, or using data to champion customer innovation. And so I'm going to actually talk about all 3. But before I do, I want to ground all the examples in what I call my product marketing mission statement, which is we in product marketing, we work tirelessly to earn our customers' trust and business by solving their problems. We use data to understand them, communicate, and delight them. So let's start with the first one. We use data to understand them. Everything in product marketing begins and should end with customer data. So here's an example. How do we leverage data to solve a business problem or even enter a new market segment? So if you look at the healthcare market, an entirely different segment that you would ever associate Uber with, you would find that it's highly, costly. About $7.7 trillion is spent in healthcare. The majority of that money is spent on preventable chronic diseases. And then if you investigate even further, this is what our data was telling us, about 72% of older adults, their number one need for transportation is getting to medical appointments, because older adults are the ones who have the most chronic diseases and are the ones who need more frequent medical visits. And we also found, by further investigating and talking to healthcare providers, that the second and third biggest reason for being able to offer care to people is transportation and food access. And these are 2 areas that Uber has clearly built a strong tech platform around transportation and around food delivery. With these insights and this opportunity in mind, we're able to launch Uber Health. Uber Health was launched about 2 to 3 years ago, or actually a little bit longer now. And the goal of Uber Health was really to offer healthcare providers the ability to organize rides for people that did not have access to transportation. Our goal was to remove transportation as a barrier for people to get care. So healthcare providers can integrate Uber Health with the electronic health records. They can schedule a ride either directly to the electronic health record with Cerner, for example, or they can just use our dashboard and organize that ride for your next medical appointment, and you will get that information being sent to you over a text message. So we wanted to make this very technology agnostic, meaning we knew that the elderly population are some of the users that will actually benefit the most from this particular service. So we wanted to make sure that we don't require them to have a smartphone. We don't require them to be able to know how to use the Uber app. So as long as you have a cell phone, you will get a text message that will send you all the information you need to learn about your appointment with the hospital, when you're going to be picked up, who's going to pick you up, and when they're going to drop you off. And the hospital can actually track that in real time. So they know if a patient is going to make it or not, if they're on the ride, and they're going to come to the particular appointment. Because we knew that up to 30% of patients miss medical appointments every year. that costs about $190 million, sorry, $190 billion a year. $190 billion a year are spent ineffectively because patients are missing their medical appointments. So here's another problem that we encountered. After we launched Uber Health, which was a very successful product, we found that a lot of customers were complaining that they never received their information about their medical appointment. And so we decided to talk to these particular customers. And we've learned that many were saying that they never got a text message because they only have a landline number, or they only provided the landline number to the hospital. So when the hospital contacts them to the landline number. And I know it seems mind-boggling that in today's world, a lot of them don't have a cell phone, but this is still the reality. So we wanted to validate these insights. And so we worked with a third-party vendor to check all of the numbers we had on our platform that were provided to us by healthcare providers to verify whether or not these numbers were a landline or a cell phone. Again, this is all obviously used so that we can uncover a particular insight that can drive product innovation. And we found out that 10% of all the users that provided a number to their hospitals, 10% that were in our platform only had a landline number. They did not have a cell phone, or they only provided a landline number. So we launched a solution that allows these particular users, when an appointment is scheduled, to get an automated call to let them know when the ride has been organized and who's going to be picking them up and when. So this way we solve for this problem, again, by really deep diving into the data, understanding what the root cause could be, talking to customers, validating it, and then building a solution for it. Then we also use data to communicate. So we wanted to be able to leverage insights to communicate value more effectively. And so how do we leverage these insights to inform a marketing campaign? Here's an example. We've talked to a lot of merchants on our Uber Eats platform, and we found out that 75% of restaurants said that they would have to close their business if not for Uber Eats during the pandemic. And some partners actually saw a 40% increase on their business because of delivery. Nevertheless, a large portion of small, medium restaurant owners still doesn't trust delivery companies. And these are the ones who are actually struggling the most. In the US, for example, 110,000 restaurants, small restaurants, being the ones that struggle the most, closed or permanently shut down. And so when we talked to them, they were very clear that they don't believe third-party delivery companies care or prioritize their small business needs. They don't believe that they are in control of their business when they join our platform, because they basically have to pay a bunch of fees and they're stuck to a particular pricing plan. They also don't believe that we have their best interest in mind, because we control all of the customer information and they don't know who their customers are. And also they don't believe that we care about them, because we don't spend enough time educating them on how to build a brand online. Because 60% of restaurant owners, we found out, don't have a college degree. And those that do have a college degree don't necessarily have a college degree in online digital marketing and how to build a brand online. So these are really important insights that we use to then inform our marketing strategy. So we wanted to build a series of commitments that would give them more financial support, will drive more demand for local restaurants, small, local, independent restaurants. We would build more ways for them to connect with their diners and know who their diners are, and then spend more time and effort educating them and helping them build an online brand. So here's a strategy we put together. Every single chapter in this particular strategy is built on a key customer insight. Chapter 1, they don't believe we care or prioritize small independent restaurants. So let's build an entire program initiative in Q1, focusing on celebrating small local restaurants. Chapter 2 in Q2 is grounded on the insight that they don't feel like they're in control of their customers. So let's build new solutions, launch new programs that will help them connect with their customers better. And then chapter 3, they believe they're not able to build a brand online because they don't have enough education or the opportunities to learn. So let's build ways to help them educate and really be successful online. So we put this strategy together. We work with product, with marketing, with a bunch of other teams, and we ended up putting together a thematic approach to bring all of these chapters under one theme, one visual element. So the strategic route was, we want to celebrate the culture that local restaurants add to the economy, into the community. So we're here for the tastemakers. We're here for the food truck hustlers, the 5-star chefs, and the one-woman operations. We're here for the hottest table in town, the bodegas down the block, and line cooks cracking the crack of dawn. We're here for the folks that can't stop, won't stop, opening their doors when we need them most, and crafting the go-to dishes in a made-to-go world. We're here to say thanks, to bring you local delivery that puts local restaurants first, with better margins for you, more insights from us, and quicker ways to connect with fans right around the corner. Because at Uber Eats, we're here for local flavor. And the whole idea of this campaign was drive demand for local restaurants. Eat local, local small independent restaurants. Let's feature the restaurateurs, the restaurant owners, the chefs, the cooks, and even the people at the front packaging your food. Also feature their menus, their dishes. Make that come to life to show that we are here to celebrate local. So we work very closely with the US and Canada consumer team, and the US and Canada consumer team were already planning on a campaign around Super Bowl. So we thought this is a great opportunity to bring these insights and help craft this narrative. So we wanted to harness the excitement around the Super Bowl to help bring people together, to champion local restaurants and boost orders for them. We brought back Wayne and Garth from Wayne's World, the kings of local access TV, so that they could be the ambassadors for local restaurants as well. We promoted $0 delivery fees. So if you would order throughout the week of Super Bowl from local restaurants, restaurants will not pay Uber Eats a single dollar. And we did this so that we can drive more demand, and we got about 7.5 million impressions across the board from just some of these local initiatives. We're also able to feature Eat Local across our app. So we work very closely with the product team to really make sure that we have Eat Local categories clearly standing out in top categories, standing out also when you're browsing to the app. So you can really see multiple ways where you can order from local restaurants. We, of course, ran multiple ads, and we did an NFL display takeover. We ran our Super Bowl commercial, which you can find on YouTube. But then we also wanted to build a 2-hour-long version of the advertisement online, the Super Bowl commercial. Now, 2-hour long because we wanted to make sure that we feature in the credits every single restaurant, local restaurant on our platform that relies on our platform to deliver food to you. So we wanted to make sure that we not only leverage this platform, we brought in a lot of celebrities to champion and sponsor independent partner restaurants. And we made sure that people became familiar with all the different restaurants that we have on our platform and how you can help them. We also launched a lot of initiatives to financially support them. We had a financial aid of $4.5 million where we were able to help thousands of restaurants that needed financial support, as well as Black-owned restaurants. We also waiving a lot of fees for the first half of this year. So if they wanted to embed Uber Eats directly onto their website, any order that was placed on their website through July was done at zero cost. We would not charge these local restaurants. We also wouldn't charge local restaurants for any orders that were picked up by customers directly, even if they were placed on Uber Eats. And we wanted to make sure they can get paid out every day because, of course, they're cash strapped. And so we waived all the transaction fees, which normally we have to pay the bank to transfer money on a daily basis. And we're able to waive those as well through July. So all of this to show that we are here to really, truly support local restaurants, but we didn't stop here. Chapter 2 was all about how do we connect them with customers, with their customers, their diners. How do we bring them closer together by providing them more information about how frequently they shop from them, by providing them more information about their typical preferences when they order from you. So giving restaurant owners more insights so that they can build a true digital hospitality experience. So we've launched these insights across our order management tablet and also the manager app that they can use to manage their online store. And it was very successful. We started getting a lot of consumers sharing their experience with restaurants that were appreciating how frequently they order from them. Here's an example. Here's a restaurant that basically said, "Dear David, this is your 26th order from us. We cannot thank you enough for your business support. We got your can of Hawaiian Sun. Hope you enjoyed it." So they offered a complimentary soda to this particular customer, and they wrote a personalized note because of the information we're able to provide them on the behaviors and the frequency of the orders from this particular customer. So really truly showing that we were helping build this online community. But we knew that we would need to also remove friction. A lot of these restaurant owners already had built a following on Instagram. They already had people following them on Instagram, and they already had a lot of great photography on Instagram. So how do we facilitate all of that so they don't have to build a new following on Uber Eats and create new photography for Uber Eats? So we were able to now enable restaurants to integrate their Instagram account directly on Uber Eats. So you as a consumer can actually open the Uber Eats app, and those restaurants that did this integration, it's obviously optional and free. You will see photos from their Instagram account. You'll be able to actually open Instagram directly on Uber Eats and see their menus. You can actually start to follow them on Instagram. So we brought these two elements together so they can continue by catering to their followers in a frictionless way. But we also added a new feature to Uber Eats. So now on Uber Eats, restaurant owners can also launch stories. With stories, they can connect with their diners directly by promoting special menu items. They can promote special holidays. Here's a few examples of that. You will see on Uber Eats, some restaurants will run stories where you can learn about new promotions. They can tell you about a new menu item. This story will run for free for 7 days. Then they can also celebrate a particular moment, like we're past COVID, or they can actually celebrate, for example, a holiday. And all of this is complimentary. But what we found is that when restaurants ran stories, about 13% of eaters that actually saw a story ended up placing an order directly from that story, which is really incredible because, again, this is all free for these particular restaurants. We're helping them build these relationships and help drive more revenue for them as well. This is how we brought those features and functionality to life, again, under that theme of celebrating local restaurants. So we built social ads like this particular one, which is a carousel. We wanted to feature their dishes. So these are actual photos from local independent restaurants that we took and we featured across all of our different ads. But we didn't want to stop there. If you remember, the other insight was we don't spend enough time educating them because they don't have college degrees or they don't have education on online marketing. So we wanted to help restaurant owners. We started off in February and March with what we called On the Rise series, which is featuring Black-owned restaurants. We worked with the celebrity chef Marcus Samuelsson, and he traveled across the United States making these very short snippet videos, which you can find on YouTube or on Eater. And he basically sort of brings the story of these local businesses to life, where you can find them on Uber Eats and order directly from them. And we're also launching what we call Merchant Academy, where you can learn as a restaurant owner how to build your menu, how to optimize photography to drive engagement, how to run advertisement to create more views to your online store on Uber Eats, how to use promotions to convert views into first-time sales, and how to use a loyalty program to convert first-time sales into recurring sales. So really building an entire platform to help restaurant owners be successful, making it very easy for them to create an online store, promote it, and drive business. Finally, we also want to leverage data, not just to understand customers and solve a problem, communicate and inform marketing, but also build a solution that delights customers ultimately. And I've used this example in my previous talk at the Product Marketing Rendezvous, but I really love this example because it really brings home the true function of product marketing. So how do we champion customer innovation? It really starts with grounding everything you do in a key insight. That insight for me in 2018 was Uber was the most expensive vendor in 2018 and 2019. And so we got this insight and we wanted to explore it because Uber is known for being a consumer-driven company. But if Uber is being more expensive than Starbucks and Amazon, that means there's a large section of the consumer population that are likely using Uber in a work-related setting, what we call business consumers. So we want to know how large this segment, how big they are for Uber. So we went to data science. That was the first sort of team that worked with us. We wanted to look at all of the riders on our platform that have a corporate card on file. Because if they are using Uber, they're paying for their trip. So we can tell from the first 5 numbers of your credit card, if it's called the BIN number, if it's a credit card that it's used for personal reasons or for corporate reasons. But we also knew that not every business consumer is traveling with a corporate card. They might be traveling with a personal card and getting points and then getting reimbursed by the company. So we wanted to look at behaviors. So we wanted to look at how many of the riders on our platform travel from airports to hotels, hotels to office spaces, and have international rides, and then build what we call the business traveler lookalike model. So what we were able to find is that 25% of our riders on our platform behave like business travelers. And this was a key input from us because this is a high value segment for Uber. So we needed to understand how they are and how they behave. So we worked with UXR to build a journey map, looking at the different stages of pre-trip, on-trip, and post-trip, what they're doing, feeling, thinking, deciding what problems they have that we can leverage as an opportunity to launch a new feature or service, and what channels did they use to communicate. With this information, we're able to get a very clear understanding of what the top needs for them were. We're also able to then deep dive and build personas. That's when we work with marketing research to really understand the different persona types, right? Jet setters, the road warriors, the locals, techies, and newbies. Jet setters were like C-level people that travel on company's dime, and they were basically spending a lot of time traveling business class flights and hotels, and they're not price sensitive. Road warriors are consultants, sales, engineers. Locals are someone who also uses Uber, but uses Uber within the confinements of the city, like lawyers or accountants. And techies and newbies are new entrants to the workforce that, for example, look at business travel as a perk. So they have this notion of leisure, which is business and leisure. They combine the two. With this in mind, we built detailed profiles around each persona, from the jet setter with the different frustrations, pain points, attitudes, and behaviors, the channels they use to communicate, as well as the road warriors, the locals, and the techies. With all this information, we're able to understand that there were several things that we can address with a new portfolio of solutions. Starting off with, we looked and identified that American Express was one of the most commonly used corporate cards on file, and they care a lot about points as business consumers. So we partnered with American Express and we launched a program where you can actually use the American Express card for work rides and get double points. We also created a business profile where you can actually automatically connect your receipts to your Concur or Certify, so that every time you travel with Uber, all those trips are automatically expensed, so you never have to spend time on Fridays running your expense receipts, which was another pain point we were told that we can address. Then they wanted to be also picked up outside the gate, and I have to go to the parking garage to get an Uber because they're on a time schedule. They want to also be able to personalize your ride, get extra leg room, and they want to be able to also do all of this in the comfort of a vehicle that is newer and has a higher rated driver, and they're willing to pay for it. So we position Uber Comfort for this particular audience that gets extra leg rooms. You can actually customize your preferences and say what kind of climate you want. You can have quiet mode so that you don't have the radio on or the driver talking to you, so you can really focus on work or even just resting from a long trip. And you will, in many airports, you get picked up right outside your gate. So we launched Comfort, but we wanted to test also the value proposition. So we ran a lot of experiments working with marketing analytics, testing different messages. So we, for example, we did A/B testing on what message should we go with for the US versus Brazil versus Mexico. We tested one message, which was earn points while traveling for work with treatment group A. Treatment group B, we tested keep work and personal trips separate. And then we have a control group, which is the baseline to compare the impact of A and B. So what we found is obviously A and B, both of them performed better than control group, which is a good sign. But then we learned that treatment A worked 20% better in the US than B, and treatment B worked 32% better in Brazil and Mexico, meaning 32% more engagement in Brazil and Mexico than A. So we knew that for different markets, we have to go with a different type of value proposition. We also knew if we should invest in photography or illustration, because we also tested the same value proposition with different groups. And the only difference was one had a photo associated with the value proposition, one had photography, illustration. And so what we're able to find out is that on average, across the different markets, illustrations perform better than photography. And this is really important for us to learn, because we can save on unnecessary costs of photo shoot, and we can speed time to market as well. So all in all, with this campaign, we're actually able to drive a lot of engagement. We brought 4.5 million new business profiles to the platform. We increased business trips by 14%, billings by 16%, and bookings by 16%. And the success of all of this is because we grounded all of our work in true customer insights. And that's really what I want to leave you with. Product marketing, more than ever, plays a pivotal role in driving innovation and being the voice of customer. And we really play the quarterback between the inbound upstream marketing teams to the downstream marketing teams. And so to do our job effectively, we always need to start with a customer truth. So never stop learning about your audience. Data is your best friend. So I love this quote: even when you're marketing to your entire audience or customer base, you're still simply speaking to a single human being at any given time. And then once you have that marketing truth, you need to build content that is grounded on that truth and experiment on it. Content is really the atomic particle of all digital marketing. So it's not just about good storytelling. I love this quote as well. It's about telling a true story well, grounded on those customer insights. And once you have that, you then focus on the right channels to propagate that message. So never stop expanding on your channels, because a great marketing strategy is a story unfolding across all possible touch points, a true story unfolding across all possible touch points. So I want to leave you with these three sort of tidbits of knowledge. I hope you found these examples interesting and helpful. And you can always connect with me and reach out on LinkedIn, or you can also find me on www.fbrand.com. Thank you for your time.
Welcome back